What's up, everybody? Hello, I'm Walter, and welcome to Vegan Yak, where I yak about all things vegan. Let me make sure that my audio is off on my computer. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Say hello. Let me know where you're from, how you're doing, how your day was. Hello, Easy Breezy. I'm also excited for this discussion. And Cheeks, hello to you. We got any iceberg lettuce fans in the chat? Um, yeah, I assume so. I'm more of a kale, spinach, or almost any other green kind of guy than a iceberg lettuce kind of guy, but absolutely. Anyway, welcome everybody. I'm excited to be back on and to do a live stream. This one's been a long time in the making. We got Chris coming on, and Chris is a friend who I met, I believe, in high school originally, maybe before that, but I think it was in high school. Easy breezy, you're more of a kale person. Me too. Um, but yeah, I'm excited because this conversation's been like a month in the making. Chris is an old friend of mine, but also a follower of the channel. He's seen, I think, like every single video. We can ask him just to make sure. But I think that he's seen every single video on the channel and is not a vegan yet. So I'm not doing my job. But I'll try to do better in this conversation and see if by the end we can change that. Chris does some wing reviews in Tucson, Arizona, and hopefully by the end of the conversation, he's only doing vegan wing reviews. I'm not holding my breath and I'm not promising anything for sure, but I'll try my best. Um, Thanks for being on, and let's go ahead and bring Chris on. Chris, hello.
Hey,
Welcome. How are you?
doing awesome.
Chris is a big 49er fan, if you couldn't tell. He loves the 49ers and the Cowboys. He definitely hates the Steelers, so that's good. Chris, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. And Chris, did we meet in high school originally, or did we meet before that?
I mean, were you at Wilson? We
Yeah,
probably knew each other at Wilson,
yeah, probably.
so
So,
middle school.
gotcha.
At
Well,
least we probably didn't hang out. I mean, or well, we never really like hung out too much or anything. Outside of school.
yeah,
But yeah, mostly like knew you in high school and stuff.
yeah,
Played some
definitely.
basketball.
Played some b-ball. Play some b-ball, y'all. Cool. Well, Chris, as you know, this is and for everybody watching, this is not a formal debate. We don't have a specific topic at hand. We're not going to spend an hour and a half talking about just health or anything like that. It'll be more of a generic discussion, hopefully focused on what Chris thinks and what he believes and seeing what's going on in Chris's head about it. Um, the thing that I wanted to say too is at the beginning, let's just make sure that we keep that comment section respectful and make sure that we keep it clean over there to some degree at least. And then Chris, like, I think, we'll probably go for, up to an hour and a half or so. If for some reason it keeps going past that, always happy to bring you back on and continue the conversation, but we'll try to have a hard stop around there so we don't just like keep going in circles or anything like that. So
Yeah,
let's go ahead and Chris, I'd like to start off. Well, first of all, I just want to make sure that we start off for everybody watching and for you, Chris, with the definition of veganism. I want to make sure that we're all operating off of the same definition so it doesn't get twisted or misrepresented at some point in time. So I'm operating off of the definition of veganism being living a way of life, trying to avoid exploitation and harm to animals as far as is possible and practical. So that's the definition I'm operating off of. Chris, I'd love to focus the conversation to begin with on your thoughts about veganism, any gripes that you have. And the question that I'd like to start you answering is what is preventing you from living a vegan lifestyle? Like what's stopping you from making that leap? Because at the end of the day, there's different types of conversations we have as activists. Of course, our goal is to push the world towards a vegan world and try to accomplish that. So I'd like to know what's preventing you from doing that. And I'd like to steer away from topics that have nothing to do with us. Like, I don't want to spend an hour and a half debating whether or not a child in a remote tribe in Africa could live on a vegan diet, because I think that's pretty pointless to our conversation. I'd like to keep it on like you and I, right? Living in
yeah.
our environment. So go ahead and tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I just think it's morally fine to we probably just disagree on some of those things. I think it's gripes. I don't have any gripes with like vegans or anything. Like I've never come in the channel and just say like, oh, you guys are idiots because you're vegan. And no, it makes makes sense, to you guys, and I think it's good that you guys are trying to help out the planet, and the animals is being the big one. But I think it's morally fine just to eat animals. I think it's fine. You say exploit. I think it's fine. To train them and to have them as show, to have pets. I think I think those are under the same lines. I'm not a pet owner. Haven't really ever been a pet owner, so like I do that, and I think that helps out a lot. Um, and I think it's fine to eat, go to the zoo, um, go to the circus, ride animals. I think that's all like natural and good things for it. I think there could be a better system, but I think veganism is fine.
So we don't have problems with vegans. That's good. That's a good start.
Yeah, like
That means you don't have a problem with me. So
I don't know. That'd be a weird one to be like anti-veganism. I wouldn't
well,
say I'm anti-veganism or
there's
anything
plenty
like
of
that.
there's plenty of those out there, so you don't need to join that pool for sure. See,
Yes, that's
you,
that was a fun statistic you had where they're like hated more than most people, and it's like, maybe I don't want to do that. I don't want to be hated just for living the life that I chose to live.
yeah, definitely. So okay, let's start there. So you're saying that it's fine. Your take is that it's fine to do these things. Obviously, I guess we have to discuss what that means to you and why it's okay to do those things. Because obviously, let's not beat around the bush. In order to eat animals, they have to be bred and killed. There's trillions of animals being killed every single year for taste pleasure, pretty much alone. So, what makes that okay to you?
I think, look, I mentioned in the comments on previous videos, it's like I think we're on a different playing field than animals. So I think like it is fine that we could own them, use them, for show or pleasure, which includes eating. I think I think it's
And
perfectly
what
all right.
what
Maybe even more optimal to have meat in diets. I saw your video about plant based diets being generally better than a carnivore's diet, but that's just and I don't want to I also saw the video about diets, and I don't want to vegan lifestyle, I should say, than a meat eater's lifestyle. And I think I've also lost a lot of weight by eating meat, beans, and vegetables, and all your things that you say, and I think they go hand in hand. But I do believe like for optimal nutrition, and I'm not in the best shape, so I'm not claiming I am, and not a nutritionist, but I think it has its definitely has its benefits for doing that, and getting different nutrients by eating meat.
So let's stick with the moral stuff first. If we need to get into health, we certainly can.
All right,
I'm not a doctor, so I'll refer to the
just threw a lot
professionals.
at you. Just threw a
I'll
lot.
refer to the
It was
professionals in that one, and they do state that you can be healthy at all stages of the life cycle on a plant-based diet, and I think we have enough scientific research to back that up and living examples like myself and others. Um, so morally speaking, like you say that we're not on the same plane as other species. So
yeah.
as a human animal, we're not on the same plane. So I think the like age old question that people ask is like, what is the difference? Like, what is the trait that is like makes it okay for us to exploit animals, keep them as pets, kill them, stab them in the throat with a knife? Like, what makes that okay? What are
I,
they lacking that a human would have to also lack to make it okay to do to a human, if that makes sense?
I think like same brain waves and just communicating effectively. Like you say, animals can communicate in certain ways, but it's not the same as humans. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, and I think those differences are perfectly fine to eat
So
animals.
okay, but so define
Yeah,
a
like,
define a different wavelength. Like, what do you mean by? Are we talking about intelligence? Are we
yeah,
talking
like
about sentience? Like, what are we talking about?
yeah. I mean, I understand. Animals are sentient beings, but like. they're not humans.
No,
And
they're not. That's
yeah,
facts.
so like basically how a normal human brain develops, like we can use tools. There's very little animals that can use tools.
Hmm.
Um, like the internet must be that's a complex thing for us to understand. I mean, they can't even they just have no idea. It's just not. So maybe learning the internet. You find me an animal that can learn the internet, I
Well,
might go vegan.
pigs can play video games. I think that's close enough. I
What
think like
what they can play? And could they
go
beat
watch
me?
go watch my well, I mean, it's not gonna get a headshot in Call of Duty, but they can do
Well,
basic
that's the
video
difference.
games.
I could get a
Yeah.
high score, and they could just play. You know?
So here's the question then, and we hear this a lot. So like I think it's understandable that like this would come up because people talk about how humans are superior, and I think that just comes up all the time. So it's like okay, so let's talk about it. I mean, I think first of all, w- what's the trait that we're measuring for superiority? Because it seems like you're identifying intelligence as the really the main one here. Is that humans are more intelligent than animals? Like we can communicate more in more advanced ways.
Yeah.
We can play video games. We can build, all these complex structures and all this sort of stuff. So it really sounds like you're identifying intelligence as the trait that's like if animals were more intelligent, like then you wouldn't kill them.
I mean, then you they would have this if they were as intelligent as us, but just as animals. Saying without vocal cords or like being able to speak English or any language. Um, if they were at our level anyway like that, then yeah, I mean, obviously it would be a different story and it'd be different.
So if you found an animal that was as intelligent as your level is, your threshold is, you're saying you would not eat that animal.
Um,
That would turn you vegan. You'd go vegan tomorrow if you found out that
yeah,
animals were super
I said,
intelligent.
if we could somehow have a translator on a dog and they could have complex conversation or be really into it and have those things and can communicate effectively with that technology, then yeah, you know um
I
yeah.
think so. This is a really common thought process. So again, that you're not alone in having this thought process of like us being at the top of the food chain and everything like that, us being more intelligent. And I don't think that there's any argument that in general terms, like as a species, the human species generally is more intelligent than the other
Yes.
members of the animal kingdom, right? Like I'm not going to sit
Like,
here and
you
be
just
like,
don't even have to say it. It's not even a question.
right? But why would intelligence be the trait that matters when we're talking about whether or not we're going to kill someone? Like, for me, like animals and humans are not equal, right? Like, and for when I'm going out to advocate for animal rights,
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for them to have all of the same rights as humans, right? Like, I don't expect us to go out to the government and convince them that animals should drive, they should be able to vote, that they should be able to operate on other people, that they should be able to build skyscrapers because it's going to be safe enough. Like I agree with you. Like if that was what someone was advocating for, intelligence
Yeah.
is a necessary requirement for those skills, right? Or if we talk about like flying a plane without a certain level of technology, even human to human, I wouldn't trust certain humans to do it, right? We don't trust certain
Yeah.
humans to do it if they're drunk, if they don't have the correct eyesight. Like all these, they have to go through training and skills. We don't just accept that all humans have the exact same rights and can do everything that all
Yeah.
humans can do, right?
I just I think like if we just keep like if we just say like intelligence, I think that's perfectly fine to do it, because then you would have to think about all these things of like where to draw a line, what animals can be treated different too. So I just draw it at human and animal.
But my question is, why is intelligence the trait for being able to live or not? Like, let me put it in another way, I guess, because for me, like, let's just say that you have a rock on the ground and a baby on the ground. And I held you up at gunpoint and I said, look, Chris, you have to kick one of these. Which one are you going to kick? The rock or the baby?
Yes, the rock. It's
The
not
rock,
a
right?
human.
It's like
Yes.
split second, like no questions asked. Now, is that decision based off of intelligence?
Yes.
It's
like,
because
like
it's
the Rock has none, and the baby is a human and has plenty of intelligence and is going to grow
okay.
as well.
So
Like
now let's say that the
we
baby
we we
is
talk
not,
about,
but you're saying it's
yeah,
okay to basically enslave an entire population of animals and breed them, like pigs, cows, chickens, pull trillions of
yes,
fish out of the ocean, choke them because they're not intelligent enough. But would you do the same if a bunch of humans also did not possess that? Because I can find pigs that are smarter than some humans. There are some humans that have major mental deficiencies or challenges, and they can't do the things you're talking about. They can't build structures, they can't have complex conversations, they don't speak English. So would it be okay to breed those people and to kill them for food?
that we're just like not as smart.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, and smart is totally,
Like,
subjective too. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can place intelligence, for a human on being able to pass a certain
So I
test
was
or
reading,
whatever.
chat a little bit.
Yeah,
So you were saying like, what if there was like a superior human to like a lower human,
there
and
are.
like
I
would
mean,
it be all right? Yeah.
that's a
Well,
fact. Like, if we're measuring by
mm,
intelligence, that is a fact. Like, there are humans that are more intelligent than other
oh.
humans, and there's some humans that are less
Like,
intelligent than
I don't know
animals.
about getting them into group. Like what humans are specifically more like smarter than like just an individual basis is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, we're just born with different and again, it's gonna depend on obviously how you're measuring intelligence because and I talk about this a lot with animals. It's like we say that we're superior to them because maybe there's that level of intelligence that you're talking about, but
Yeah.
also we're very inferior in other ways. I can't see at night, like I can't run as fast as other animals. I can't fly without technology and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Well, I
it
mean,
depends on
the
what
animal that
trait
could
you're
run
choosing.
the furthest and in the quickest amount of time is a human. I think if you want
Uh
to group us as that,
I don't think we're the fastest animal on the planet, but
we're not the fastest. We're not the fastest, but we could run the longest and the quickest amount of time. Like if there was a
but I
certain set
wouldn't
distance.
But I wouldn't choose whether or not to keep a species alive
Yes.
based on that
Like,
trait because it's irrelevant to
well,
whether or not I'm gonna put
that's not
a knife
that's
in
not
their
really
throat.
intelligence and how I'm just drawing the line. Like there's a clear difference between humans and animals, and I don't see them on the same plane.
I don't
Whether it's
either.
intelligence,
I don't either. I
and
don't
that's.
think animals are on the same
I'm not
plane,
gonna say like, oh, anybody that's not on the same plane, I'm gonna eat them. Like I'm saying, it's
but that is
humans, it's animals. It's perfectly all right to eat them. Most people, I think, can agree with that statement.
well, I'm not gonna go with
But
just a majority opinion. Majority opinion
yes,
used to
like,
think that slavery was fine and that women didn't deserve rights. So,
yes, and like I said, anything's due to change. But what we're
but but
living, the current day and year,
but
and it's
answer
like,
the question though, Chris. Answer the question. If we look at the population and we say like mentally challenged people, they are not going to have the level of intelligence that you're talking about. And quite honestly,
I,
there's
I think
plenty
they,
of
I
animals
think
that
they
are
do see, I do think they qualify as that level
why,
of intelligence.
but they don't. They don't have the
Well, like,
intelligence.
I mean,
Like
I helped run
there's
a
pigs
PE
that are
class with mentally challenged kids, and man, they have plenty of intelligence and conversation and
no,
thought provoking ideas.
there's some humans
Mhm.
that can't have
All
conversation.
right, yeah, there's some humans, yes.
So is it
Are you
okay
saying
to
like,
exploit them and kill them?
no? Because it's still at the end of the day, and it's what are the laws and stuff. I think some people like, what is that, like, mice and men is kind of about like euthanasia, and
But
whether,
but you're saying let's
but,
focus on
but yeah, like
one trait because
I don't believe in that.
you're
I would
saying
just say,
intelligence though, right? Like I just want to make sure that we're focusing on one trait at a time because
I
I don't
even
want us
think
to get
I
lost,
even think the lowest human intelligence is usually pretty higher than the smartest of certain animals.
But that's just factually inaccurate. I mean, there are
Is
functioning
it?
yeah, a pig is smarter than like a
Then,
3-year-old child.
like,
Like
yeah, all right. I mean,
so there are
but
just
like
factually
potentially,
animals,
like
Chris, there are
is
we have to agree on this statement here.
are we just
There
gonna
are
go with like the maturity level, like at
no,
any like
even
one time, like,
No, there's adults that will
'Cause
never
there's
reach the certain level of intelligence that a full functioning pig would have. There are mentally challenged people that will not be able to communicate. They will not have that level of intelligence, and they will not perform base functions as well as a fully functioning
yeah.
dog, gorilla,
But,
pig. There are
you know,
animals that are going to be smarter than them.
it's just that's how the laws are set up.
So, but do you agree then it's not
Like
intelligence? You're going to
if
switch
if
from
the laws were
intelligence to
not to
law?
eat animals, if the laws were not to eat animals, I would have to abide by those.
So,
And
okay,
if it,
before we
and
move on to the
for the
laws,
most
because
part, like, because I've broken some laws, but like,
sure, but
yeah,
Chris,
but
Chris,
yeah, like, I don't know, I don't, you know, I
Chris,
do. It's humans and animals, man. There's a clear distinction. We all know what that like.
you know
We
what?
all
They
have
used to
like
say
a
that
different
though.
spectrum. You're using intelligence, and I like it could be communication. I guess that would be a form of intelligence. Like, what is there even like another way to describe a difference between like humans and animals? Like,
Well, there's
what
a
do you
lot of
want me to
different
say?
ways. Yeah.
Like opposable thumbs, or like
Well, I think it's important that when you're like, we're talking about a being's life, right? Whether we're talking about a human being or an animal, when we're talking about a being's life and we're talking about whether they're going to be experienced to being enslaved, beaten,
yeah,
tortured, and then having a knife stuck in their throat, I think we should have more of a justification than just, hey, they're different than us. You're just saying that like, hey,
like
animals are not the same as humans, so there it
yes,
is. But you know what? They used to just say the same thing about black people. They used to say the same thing about women. They used to just say, hey, you know what? They're animals. They're not the same as us. And like for me, that's not.
yes,
And I think for you, that's not a
and
good enough reason, right? Like that's
people
not a
have
good enough
gotten that
justification.
dead wrong, and they still continue to get dead wrong. Obviously,
But
like
they do just say like, hey, like, that's it is what it is, but is that really a good enough justification for the action that's being taken? Like, would it be okay to enslave someone because we just go, "Hey, well, but they're different than us."
are you saying there might be in the future like a where we're looking back and it's like, ah, man, we never should have ate animals.
Well, that's
Like,
inevitably gonna
that's
happen.
that's inevitably going to happen. I mean,
That's
and
inevitably
they're
gonna
gonna look
happen,
back
yeah.
and be like, ah, man, these guys. Would you believe it? They're so savage. They still ate animals. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a possibility. That's a possibility. But like I said, we're living in the current day,
Can I
and things current day back then were normal.
can I
And
offer can
right
I
or
offer,
wrong,
like, a different trait that I think
like
is more important than intelligence?
feelings.
Sentience, yeah, and
Yeah,
and why it's more applicable. And is it okay if I make that argument?
yeah, go for it.
So I think like intelligence is one thing that we can look at, right? And I agree that intelligence is important if we're going to look at something like, hey, can you operate on my body? Right? Or, hey, can you drive this car? Hey, should you be the president of the United States? I think there's certain things that would like we should look at intelligence as one of the things, right? Like we should go, hey, you know what? You need to be intelligent enough to do this. I don't think that just because someone is not intelligent that they should be killed or should be allowed to be experiencing pain because that's not a direct correlation. The thing that's happening and what we need to look at is pain, is suffering, is sentience because that's the action that's being taken. We're not testing dogs to see whether or not they should drive cars or be the president of the United States. We're saying, "Hey, should we kill them? Should we stick a knife in their throat? Should we put them in cages?" And their intelligence is not going to be the thing that determines whether or not we should do that. Whether or not we should do that is based on whether or not they feel pain and suffering and whether or not they have the ability to experience that. Right? Like that's the applicable trait here. It's sentience. It's not intelligence. Picking intelligence for whether or not someone should be hurt is like just like picking any other arbitrary trait. It could be like, well, can they fly? And it's like, well, if they can't fly, then they deserve to die. Like that doesn't them knowing how to
Mhm.
fly or not has nothing to do with them being hurt, right? Like that has nothing to do with whether or not we should stick a knife in their throat. if they feel pain. The reason, and Chris, let me ask you, like, back to the example of if you had a dog on and then a rock on the ground, and I had you at gunpoint and said you have to kick one of them, you would kick the rock. But the reason that I would argue that you would kick the rock is because you know that if you would kick the dog, you would hurt the dog. It'd be because you're causing pain to the dog. I think the same thing if it was a human. If there was a rock on the ground or a carrot on the ground or something, and I said, "Hey, you have to shoot the carrot or you have to shoot the human," you'd go, "I'm gonna shoot the carrot because I think the carrot's not gonna feel pain. And for that reason, it doesn't
Yes.
matter if I shoot the carrot." Right?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, that analogy makes sense. But what about just being the trait of this is an animal and this is a human then?
But I think it's
And what that
important to
encompasses.
I
I
understand what you're
mean,
saying, but then it's like, are you saying that it's just because they're a different species? Like, is it just that, okay, now they
yeah.
don't share our DNA? Like, is that because I don't know that again that that trait is really relevant to whether or not they can feel pain or suffer or that we should
Yeah,
shove a
and
knife
like
in their
how,
throat.
I mean, how do you measure an animal's pain or suffering? I mean, they're going to suffer in the wild, they're going to suffer in farms, I guess. There's going to be a little bit of that. I mean, I don't think humans can prevent suffering. Um,
I think we
and
do. I think we do, and I think we certainly try. Like, what's the point of having
I
rescue,
don't, I,
like,
I don't think we
shelters?
try to inflict other people suffering. But
We try to prevent
like,
animal suffering all the time, and
I don't know,
I
like,
bet
have
you
you
are.
ever cried in sadness, or you're hurt? Like,
Mhm.
I think
I mean,
those are just things that inevitably life will happen, and
but I think, like,
you
what you're
can't
saying
prevent some of
is,
those things.
yeah, but that's like an appeal to futility. That's just like, the world's never gonna be perfect, so what's the point in trying? Like, no, yeah, the world's
Yeah,
never gonna be
but the
perfect. There's
reasons
gonna
I
be
think it's like
suffering.
finding animals, as I said, like it could be, for health reasons. I think convenience of it. Like I like to just walk into a supermarket and like just I don't want to read the back of every label that I'm getting, to check. And sometimes I do that. Like, oh yeah, like I can make the decision between low sodium or like no sodium or sodium can of beans, and it's I usually go for the no sodium, um, which makes sense to me. And but it's to do that with like every a lot of things, not everything, and you probably know how easy it is for you now. I'm
Yep.
sure you've had difficulties in the beginning uh, with all that, and I know there's a lot of options and there's a lot of really good options. Um, but it's like, are we just? I mean,
But it sounds like to me, Chris,
like
and
pleasure and convenience are big ones, for a lot of people.
I agree,
I
I
mean,
agree.
I
I
think
totally agree.
like if you got if there was like meat products that taste exactly like texture feel like chicken and it was cheaper and it was as available as it is, I could definitely make the change to that, which I think is what everybody should do. Yeah.
Well, so
Um,
so hold on.
so
So,
like,
like,
yeah,
le hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on,
if
hold
you
on.
could
Pause, pause,
prepare
pause,
everything
pause.
what I eat in the same way, then I
You
could
can.
switch.
You can. You can easily, but that's not the point
Yeah,
really.
I
It
mean,
doesn't, because it doesn't matter. There's been people that have been vegan for so long, way before it was as convenient as it
yeah,
is today, and I think they were morally correct in choosing that.
yeah,
Like, here's the thing, it's like, first of all, I think we're bouncing around a lot, around different topics, right?
yeah,
And it's like
yeah. Sorry.
intelligence, convenience,
Yeah,
taste,
that's what I said.
pleasure.
It's not just like, oh yeah, they're not the same intelligence, so I'm just going to do it because I do it. I want to kind of explain where
Well,
I'm coming from. I
mhm.
as concise as I can, and I do jump around, so I apologize.
I think no, 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 that you're totally fine. Like I said, the conversation can go in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of things that people bring up. There's a lot of excuses, so we can certainly touch on taste, convenience, all these sorts of things.
Yeah,
But I do want to just make sure that we've concluded on intelligence
yeah,
because I think ultimately, like intelligence, and I think you can probably agree that intelligence is not the trait that we should actually be looking at when we talk about whether someone should live or die. I don't think we should look at humans and go, are they intelligent enough to live? Because are
Right.
they intelligent enough for us to kick them and punch them in the face? Like,
Like, or farm and raise them and use them for human consumption. Like, I think that is a very viable
I
thing to
think,
look at. What's available to humans who are on top of the pyramid, and everything else that's below. And um, I don't want to overconsume. I want to touch on that. It's like, don't want to overconsume. So, but
why?
I don't think it's good to overconsume in just about anything, like in all aspects of life.
But why?
Like,
And why in the earlier parts you said, like, you think there's better methods or whatever it is, right? Like we could be doing things in a better way. But
yeah, more.
let me ask you, why should we? Why should we do
I
things
think
in a
there
better
is.
way?
I think there is.
Like, are
Uh,
you opposed to factory farming? Is that like basically what you're saying?
um, I'm. I would like convenience and practicality for the meat to taste good at the same price, and if that meant you have to raise cows longer or treat them better, I'm all for it.
But it's only about your personal pleasure and gain out of that. That has nothing to do with them.
Well, then it'd be mutually beneficial.
Why would it be beneficial for them?
For your points that you say to cause less suffering, and
So you agree that they are suffering and and it sounds like you agree that you would want to lessen that if possible.
yeah, like I'm not so far where it's like, yes, death and tons of suffering. I mean, who wouldn't want less? Um,
Okay. So so let me pause you
if I
there.
can not change anything I do, and there's just less suffering in the world, whether it's for them or for me or the ecosystem, I'm just gonna choose the less out, for everything.
Then you're a
Uh,
vegan, Chris. Like that's the
so you
point,
say,
right?
so you
Like
say,
at least in principle, you might not be living in accordance to your own philosophy. You might not be living in alignment with your own beliefs, but if you believe that we should reduce animal suffering if possible, then that is what we're talking about, right? Like we're never going to eliminate all suffering on the
yes,
entire planet, but we can reduce it. And when you talk about like what you need to give up in order to do that, like literally it's almost, especially in 2021, it's like essentially nothing, right? Like you live in a first world country, you have access, literally, it's the
yes,
same action. You go to the store and you pick something off the shelf, you run it across the scanner, you put it in a bag, you take it home, you cook it. Whether that item is a dead animal's body or a can of chickpeas or some other plant, it's literally the same process. So literally you're going to like you would have the same action, it's the same convenience, it's the same stuff. Like I agree that there's like okay, maybe reading some labels, but like you had mentioned, people do that all the time
yeah,
for a bunch of different purposes.
yes,
So literally today, like you could choose tomorrow for 3 meals to just not hurt animals and you would be causing less suffering. And it's not just to animals, it's to other human beings, it's to the environment, it's to a whole bunch of different things. So it's like
yes.
you're saying that that
Like,
is virtuous. You're saying that that is a good thing. If we can reduce the suffering, we should do that.
I think there's no coincidence. Like, my favorite foods involve meat or meat products.
Well, no, you were raised with that and
Like,
you were part of that
I mean,
culture and everything else. Yeah.
I do try to eat like a lot of different vegan meals, and I think it's something like I said, like you don't want to overindulge. You just don't. I think it's it's fine that if someone wants to just eat meat all the time, but I think they're just not getting the vegetables that they want, and all the other good stuff.
But I think
That's
here's the
really
point
good,
though,
but
right?
like,
But you're like you're contradicting your own beliefs,
yeah,
right? Because you're
you say
saying
if I chose between animal suffering and no animal suffering, but and my example was and everything stayed the same for me, which some people could take as selfish.
it is.
Um, yeah,
I'm not saying it's necessarily
I
even a
don't think
bad thing to
it's
be selfish. I'm just saying, yeah, let's label it what
like,
it is. I mean, but look, here's the thing. Like if we I think if we put this in context of other moral situations, we'll realize like kind of how ridiculous some of this sounds, right? So I like to look at other I understand that it's hot topics at times to put this into different contexts for people, but let's take a look at something like slavery, right? Let's imagine that back in the day, I'm a slave owner and you're trying to convince me that slavery is wrong, right? Because you believe that humans deserve rights and that they shouldn't be subjected to the abuse that I'm doling out or whatever it is, right? Let's say that I'm beating my slaves and you're telling me to stop. And I say, you know what, Chris, I'll stop only when I can have access to a robot that will do all of this work for the same amount of price and give me all of the same convenience and pleasures and everything that I get now. Do you think that that's a good enough justification to go and continue to have slaves and to beat them? Or do you just think that that's really
Like
selfish and it's
what? We're
not a
going
good
back in
justification?
time. We're going back in time to like how people thought back then,
We don't even have to go back in time. Let's just say I was
or
doing it now today. Like, and you
and it
said,
was
"Hey, I
legal. It was legal and fine.
Sure. Well, legality doesn't equal morality, right? So I don't think we need to even
Yes,
think about legal. Like
I think it plays a. I think it plays a big role
it
because I
plays a
think
role in what we think,
we
but we
we the
shape
people vote
our
for the laws here in America, and it's like so that's what's normal now, and that's what the people at that time, think is legal and fine,
but think
which
about
is based on their individual moralities. So,
yeah, we
um,
we vote on the you're right. We vote on the
so
laws and
it's
everything
it's
like
it's
that,
a
but
weird
we
question. It's a weird question, and
but it should be
so
we
say
should be
you did
putting it
it
in
to
context,
this
yeah?
day. You did it to this day. You had slaves, and it was like legal and fine. Like because there's still slavery going on, and I think they get around it some loophole in different countries.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, but I don't think legality needs to be a part of it unless you're just gonna talk about the cultural norms or something. But legal
Yeah,
like
and like people around you
we
thought,
we
like
could
I
pass a
mean,
law tomorrow. Let's say the public voted on a law tomorrow and said, "Hey, you know what? Anybody that wears Pittsburgh Steelers stuff, we're gonna kill them." And it's legal now. Do you think we should do it?
yes, no, no,
No, I
I
mean,
don't
I
think so.
personally
Like
I think we could eliminate that fan base and that'd be totally fine. But
I also was given a lot of examples of why I think it's fine to kill animals and normal, and it's not like, hey, since you can sympathize with an animal, well, you're vegan.
no, but what
You shouldn't eat them now.
well, I think that is what it is. Like
That's that's that's. I
it's the
mean,
same
but
thing for
people
humans.
think differently. People think differently,
Well, slave
and I
owners
would
thought differently
yes, and that
and they thought
was
it was fine. But
yeah,
I'm asking the
not
question, would you think that
not
that's
a
a
thing
good
now.
enough would you think that's a good enough justification is for me to say, "Hey, until I selfishly get everything that I can get
Yes,
out
if
of
you
this
were like,
situation,
I
then
think
then
if it was like back when any time where people were allowed to have slaves and it was like a cultural norm, I mean, then I assume, yeah, then I would say, all right,
so slavery is totally justified until we can replace it with robots that can do it and get the same conveniences from. That's your statement? That's
no,
what you're sticking
that's
with?
not my statement. I was just saying, like, hey, if it was back in time, like,
But that
well, I
is
mean,
I'm just saying,
that's not my statement. We all know that's not my statement.
then what's your
Obviously, like,
so your statement is that that would not be a good enough justification to keep having slaves.
was
Yeah?
it right at the time? Was it right at the time? Yeah, I mean, do we want to get into like philosophical why slavery ever existed and what was to gain from it for
Do you
certain
think it was
people?
but that's the whole
Like,
point is like that they
was
were
it ever right? Was it ever right?
no, it
And like,
wasn't.
no, like, I
No, it
mean,
wasn't. It wasn't ever right because they were exploiting another human being for their
was it
own selfish
ever
gain, and
more
they were doing it
beneficial for all people ever?
was it more beneficial for all people?
For all
Um,
people ever? I
no.
mean,
No,
I
it
think
wasn't
so. I think
because
it could have been. I think there's examples out
so
there
you think slavery was justified.
where people had better lives on both ends and they enjoyed
So
their
so
lives, and it was
you think slavery was justified then?
no,
No,
don't
of
think
course not.
like what like now like but people are different back then.
Yeah, but that doesn't
Like
like it doesn't matter
is it like
because is it wrong to hurt another human
or
being?
were
Like,
people like
look,
unmoral for doing it back then?
look,
I mean,
Chris,
that's you think a lot of
Chris,
people could say yes to that,
do you
Walter.
think do you think that it's moral to hurt another human being when you don't have to? I agree that, like you're saying, there are situations where we would say, like, there's no blanket statement to say murder's always wrong, right? Or killing is always wrong, because there's gonna always be a situation where we're probably going to be able to find a justification for it. If I put you in some sort of survival situation and there was another human being that was going to kill you and you killed that other human, we would probably say, like, you know what? Killing in that circumstance, even though generally speaking, we would say killing is wrong, we would say killing was justified in that circumstance because you were in a survival situation. But if
Yes,
it's not for a reason that you have to do it, do you think that harming another human being is correct?
harming another human being and like,
Yeah.
except for like extreme circumstances, like
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to go with what's all the information that you have.
Well,
And how I
okay.
think it's like, all right, am I gonna like push someone in the middle of the street ever, and that person didn't do anything to me ever? It's like, no, of course not.
Okay,
Just
but
like I would
that's what
I would
you
I would push an animal
that
like in
is
that
what you force
situation.
but that
But
is
but
what
I
you
would
force an
but I
animal
would
to
kill
do.
like a bug or something in my house. Like I have a lot of moths in the house right now because it's raining like crazy, and I don't have a problem to like try to get them out of the house and catch them, or hit them with a paper towel roll.
Well, yeah, I mean, but why not just catch them and put them outside? And why
It's a
not
lot harder. It's a lot harder and more time consuming.
okay. So then it's convenience. Again,
Yes,
it sounds
convenience. Like, yeah,
but
I mean,
then
there's a lot of factors. I
but
mean,
I'm saying but I'm
like,
saying, Chris, hold on,
you
hold
want
on,
me
hold
to
on,
narrow
hold on,
it down to like
Chris,
one
hold
thing and
on.
you get the rebuttal for
Chris,
it? Like,
hold on. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
yes.
You're interrupting a lot. Let me finish. Look, here's the thing, Chris. You're saying that these things are important, right? Like the convenience, the personal things. But if I put them in another context, you won't actually say it's okay. You keep trying to bend around and try to, like,
I
kind
don't
of
know if I'm bending.
yeah, you are. You're trying to go like, oh yeah, well actually slavery maybe in this circumstance and blah blah, blah, and like you're trying to
Well,
like
you
go
gave
around
like a
the
very
issue.
weird like question that
It's
doesn't.
not a weird question. It's a very straightforward question, which is, do
No,
you
it's
think?
like put yourself in a different time era and like you came
Yeah,
up to me and said like, is it fair for me to say like until robots can do it? And
and
like
that's
that'd
because that's
be
what
a
you're
good way
saying.
to like get rid of them. Like what if you gave them a great life and gave them all the best foods
You still think it's
and cook only vegan for them, and they just it was like more of a bartering for like them to live in a very nice place. Like
are they being
we
forced into
we
it?
could
Or are
we
they
could bend
entering
it.
the
We
agreement
can bend it.
consensually? Are they entering the agreement consensually or are they being forced into it?
Well, there was consensual slavery.
But that's okay, but then they're like you're talking about like a job
Like,
contract where I provide a bunch of stuff and they work for me. Like you're talking
yes,
about a different bartering or I'm not talking about
like
that. I'm talking
you
about
you don't have
forced
to you don't
slavery
have to
labor.
be a bad person in general.
But I'm talking about
Like
forcing someone into slavery, and you're saying that it would be okay for
like
someone to say,
not
well,
not in this not yeah, no, not right now. No.
so it would not be a good justification. Convenience and pleasure are not a good justification to continue to harm and exploit someone against their will, right? Like, do you think these pigs are
Yes,
entering bartering contracts?
someone.
You think cows are coming in
Yeah, and that's the
and
difference. They
entering a
don't.
contract and saying, "Hey, you know what? I would love to be
No, they don't have the
exploited," and
intelligence to do it.
but they so they're not doing that.
Like
So we're keeping them against their will. Like, Chris, are you against dog fighting?
dog fighting.
Like,
I think you asked
are
this
you
one
against
time,
even just punching a
and
dog in the
I've
face?
I've never seen or gone to a dog fight, but having watched like documentaries, like we know Michael Vick, and I think he's done great things now for animals. And maybe if he didn't go through all that, he wouldn't have been as productive as he is with those thoughts. And I think it changed his life for the better and
But
redeem themselves.
no, but
And
Chris, hold on. I have to
so
stop you there. Hold
yeah,
on.
and
I have to,
in
no, hold
fighting,
on. Chris,
I've seen horse racing, and it's kind of similar. And I enjoy horse racing. I don't know if I would like dog fighting.
Chris, but you're putting something in the context that all at the end has benefit to someone. Like the animals that are going through and then ending up on your plate are never benefited. There's not this like, oh, well, I actually think that that one time of them making a mistake was okay because at the end they actually ended up turning around and being a good human. Well, first of all, they
Yes,
could have just
went on a
chose to
tangent
be
there,
they
but
just could have
yes,
chose to be a good human to begin with and not done the dogfighting because I don't think you need to like be a go
yes.
through a bunch of struggles of dogfighting to realize that you don't need to do dogfighting because it's harming the dogs and not good for them.
I
And at
mean,
the end of the day, the only reason that you were able to try to turn that situation around was because you tried to then put it into a like where they benefited from it, and it changed that person into a good person. But that's not what's happening with animal agriculture. The animals aren't benefiting from this. There is no turning around. The only reason that people will turn around and become good people is if they decide that they're like not going to do this anymore. So the
yes.
applicable, if I compared your situation that you just brought up,
I mean,
the reason for you to eat meat would be for you to realize that you shouldn't be doing it, and that for you to be vegan.
am I causing absolutely without a doubt more harm, like more suffering by eating meat than you, or but by vegans? Because like, how do you measure animal suffering? I mean,
How do I measure your suffering,
what if
Chris?
I could prove that I do less suffering, or bring up points that like, hey, like I've never owned a pet.
But
Isn't that a form of slavery? I mean,
well,
so
I can talk about that.
you would be against owning a pet.
Okay, but Chris, why
Like,
would
and
you
I
want
know like
to?
you did this argument, and I try not to like say like, oh, like hey, because you're not perfect in all these certain areas, but I think I cause less suffering than some people, to animals for sure.
But why would that
And
even be important to you? That's my question. Like, why would it
well,
be important to
it's
you?
not that important to me because I just live a normal life. Um, and I'm only talking about it because we're talking about it right now on
Right, but I mean,
a vegan.
why would that be a point that you would make? Is like as a hey, what if I could prove
Or like,
that
yeah, what if
actually
I
as a
did
meat
like,
if as a meat eater I
well,
could prove hold on,
you
Chris.
want
Hold on,
less
Chris.
suffering.
Hold on, Chris.
All
Hold
right.
on. What if you're saying, what if I could prove as a meat eater, I actually cause less animal and the other ways that I live my life, that I
Yes.
cause less suffering to animals than the way that you live.
Yes.
I would just suggest that you're being a better vegan than me, right? Like ultimately
All right.
veganism is not tied to a
Yes.
specific food or diet. This
Yes.
is like there's a really good example of this that
You
came
can
up.
eat
So
animals and be a vegan.
no,
Mm,
yes, I'll give you the way out of that,
all right.
but it's not for you. You can't. But
Hey, one day maybe I can't. I mean,
I brought this up on the last stream. I don't know if you were on there, but let me bring this up as a good example. This came up the other day where I was really intrigued by it. We went to the store. We went to go buy some ice cream and buy some treats and stuff like that. And one of the ice creams that we bought was by a company called oh shoot, now I forget the name. I think it's Bad Robot. No, that's like a production company, something robot. Um, so it's some sort of robot ice cream. And when we brought it home, it says vegan on it. So we're like, okay, cool, sounds good. We bring it home, and it turns out that it actually contains the chemical formula for dairy. And so it even says like contains animal like whey protein. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Like, how is that the case? Like, they're saying it's 100% vegan, but it has like
yeah.
animal products in it. So, what does that mean? And it turns out that the ice cream, the way that they get it is through like a fermentation process. And so, it chemically is identical to the whey protein in dairy, and therefore is an animal product, but it didn't ever involve an animal. It didn't ever cause any suffering to an animal. So, by definition, it is vegan and an animal product. Now, that's why you can't tie veganism to like a
Yes.
certain food or something, especially with the way that the world is going, because we're going to have all these different like, lab
Yes.
meats and all
Like
this sort of stuff that eventually will probably not be causing that much harm or maybe none at all to animals at some point in time. And then at that point in time, like meat could potentially, in that circumstance, be vegan. If you find roadkill on the side of the road and you eat that,
yeah.
like technically you're eating an animal product, but did you, cause harm or suffering to the animal if you weren't the one that like ran it over? If you found a dead deer in the forest or something like that, those are like the classical examples. I don't tie veganism to the food group. It's a way of living where you're trying to reduce animal suffering as far as possible. So bringing it back to what you said, if you say something like, well, what if I found a better way of living than what you're currently doing to reduce
Like
animal suffering? I'd say, Chris, thank you. I'd
yes.
say I wouldn't fight
That's
you. I would say, Chris, please bring that
that's
to my attention
that's what I said
because
with you, right?
I'm going to say, please bring it to my attention because you know what, Chris? I'm interested in reducing animal suffering as far as is possible and practical. So if you find something that
Yes.
either I'm doing or a different way of living that could reduce animal suffering, then by all means bring it to my attention. I'd be happy to do it. But all you're
Yes.
doing is trying to
Correct.
push for a vegan lifestyle. You're trying to push for a way to reduce suffering as far as is possible and practical. And then I'd have to turn to you and go, hey, Chris, you're doing some things right now that you could do that you could actually change. And tomorrow you could stop hurting animals like as much as you currently do, right? You could reduce on your animal consumption. You could eliminate your animal consumption. You could stop wearing leather or going to shows that exploit animals and stuff like that. Like you could tomorrow stop causing harm to animals. And I'm asking you, what's preventing you from doing that? Because that's the problem. Like that's what I really wanted to like what's
Yeah.
preventing
Like
you from
what
doing
would
it?
what would like stop
Yeah,
to do it
because if you
tomorrow?
told yeah, because if you told me, like, for instance, "Hey, tomorrow, Walter, you could reduce your animal suffering if you actually went out into the wild or, like, killed yourself,"
Yes.
I'd go, "Okay, well, yeah, maybe, but also I'm not gonna do that because I value my own life, right? So I'm not gonna kill myself."
Yeah.
I'd be the perfect vegan. I would stop causing any harm to animals, but that's not really a vegan lifestyle because that's not as far as possible and practical. It's not practical for me to just end my life. I would go, "I value my life. I'm not gonna do that." You're sitting here and doing the same thing, but it's instead of like that drastic of like ending your life, you're saying, you know what? I'm just not willing to give up a burger or I'm not willing to give up this thing. And I'm asking, what is holding you back from making that change?
There's a lot there. It's like pleasure, convenience.
Okay, so pause. Let's
Like
focus on because I just want to go one at a time. So let's start with pleasure, right?
yes,
Do you really value like your pleasure, your taste buds more than an animal's life? Like,
yes.
what do you value more? Taste pleasure that lasts for like 5 minutes or life?
An animal's life. Yeah, probably taste pleasures
You value taste
is what I
pleasure
would value
more.
more. Yeah.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Why? Because it's like a sensation to eat. It's like it's very enjoyable.
But you think
Like
that your enjoyment, your personal like sensory pleasure
is better than an
is more important than life.
animal's life. Yeah, I think it's fine to say that.
So, okay. Well, I mean, if you're being honest, then you're being honest, but I guess I'd have to ask like again, do you think that it's okay to beat dogs?
Like no, I don't think I would get enjoyment out of beating a dog.
No, 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 not even eating them, but like just beating them. Yeah,
Beating.
oh yeah, beating. So
Yeah, yeah, beating.
you don't think that that's okay?
I don't think it's okay, but I also think I wouldn't get any enjoyment. Maybe it's the greatest feeling in the world, and there's like a legal way of doing it, and I think that may be all right. But I don't think that's really quite the case.
So, but so are you against beating dogs or aren't you? Like, take a stance.
No,
Like,
I think it. What I would feel for like punishing a dog, like you punish your dog. Have you ever punished your dog?
I mean, I
Like,
don't hit my
is
dogs.
a
No.
shock collar? I mean, that's kind of like beating, or
No.
like
I just
you
mean
swat
like
him with a
taking.
newspaper roll or something like
No,
that because
it's
he
not even. No, it's
chewed
not
up
even
your
like
shoes.
trying. Nope, not even corrective behavior. Nothing. It's just literally beating them for pleasure. Do you think that's okay?
Um, no, it wouldn't be okay for me.
Okay. So, but why is that pleasure not good enough? That's sensory pleasure, right? I think.
I would get the opposite of, like, I would feel bad to like do that, or like,
Right. But
but if I
why? Like,
enjoyed it, like, I mean, why do we enjoy like roller coasters?
but I'm saying you would say for someone else that that's not okay because you would say that beating dogs is not okay. I don't think we need to take
Yes,
in
I wouldn't want it.
disingenuous
I wouldn't
like
want.
shock factor statements here,
I
right?
think
Like,
like hurting, like, let's just say something in general. It's even worse if it's a human, in my opinion, for sure. But like unnecessary, like, because you get enjoyment, like that's usually a very like weird person.
yeah. So if
And
somebody said,
that's
Chris,
just how I feel. That's how
if
I
somebody
feel.
said I love beating dogs because I like the way that it sounds. Like I just love the sound of dogs whimpering and being beat. You would think that person's a psychopath, correct?
Yeah, I'd probably think something's a little off with them.
What is the difference between sound pleasure and taste pleasure? Why is taste pleasure justified but sound pleasure is not? Sensory pleasure.
Sensory. I was confused why you kept saying sound. Um, why is it? Why? Because one's enjoyment,
It's enjoyment of sound.
or
I
you mean
enjoy the
sensory, like
I
feelings? You
I
feelings you get?
well, no, it's a sense, just like taste, feel, touch, they're all senses, right? And I enjoy the sense and the sound of dogs being beaten. Why
Yeah,
am I
you're kind
wrong?
of weird. I think because I think we have laws for that too. Um,
So I
like
find
your personal
enjoyment out of
pet.
it, but I find enjoyment, I get pleasure out of it.
Yeah, you're a little off in this day and time, because I think that's close to like beating humans too. I think.
So you agree that sensory pleasure and that pleasure is not a good enough justification to hurt an animal
No, I think eating them and like farming them is fine
for
morally.
taste pleasure. For taste pleasure, it's fine,
For
but
taste
sound
pleasure,
pleasure, it's not.
along with a laundry list of, different things. I was
Why
gonna
is
name them off.
sound pleasure not good enough, but taste pleasure is?
Sound pleasure. I I got confused of why you say sound pleasure.
Well, you like music, right?
Yeah,
And it's pleasurable to you for you to listen to certain types of music that you like.
yeah.
I get pleasure out of the sound of dogs being beaten,
Oof.
right? So,
You do? Ugh.
well, in this
Just
hypothetical
kidding.
situation, let's say that that's the case. I'm getting.
Then they should go work in a slaughterhouse.
But do you think that then I'm justified to hurt animals because I like the sound of it?
I think that's justified for you to go to a work at a slaughterhouse, I guess. If but I think you're a weird guy for liking that.
Weird as in morally wrong, right? Let's call it what it is. You think that that is morally wrong to hurt dogs because you like the sound of it. I don't think you're going to be able to
More
provide an argument, Chris, that sound pleasure and taste pleasure are different. They're both sensory pleasures.
like
What's the difference between
there might be like a guy listening to a YouTube video of dogs whimpering or something.
yeah, and I would say that that's crazy and wrong.
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty weird to me. That's
Yeah,
not a video
but
I would enjoy.
I also think it's wrong to kill animals for any other sort of pleasure because it's for pleasure. Whether it's for the sight pleasure, for visual pleasure, because I like watching them be beaten, or if it's for the sound pleasure
Yeah,
because I
like
like listening to them be beaten, or if it's for the taste
yeah,
pleasure because I like the way that
yeah,
it's all pleasure.
yeah. A lot of those pleasures are make it, I think, all right.
So
Oh,
what's so so then
like
okay.
it
So
is
make the
cool.
argument. Tell me
It's cool
what's
to
the
see
difference
dogs do
between sound,
tricks, and it's cool to go see the SeaWorld show. Like I thought that was a cool show.
but it's causing them pain. And so
Like
I'm
yeah,
asking if why is it not okay to cause them pain because I like the sound of it, but it's okay for you to cause them pain because you like the taste of it. We're both talking about human
Like
pleasure.
that's just so weird. Just so weird that people like the taste of different meats, and
It's
also
it's weird that people like the taste of it. It's weird that people
is
might
it
like the
weird that I don't
sound
like
of
the
it.
taste of other different meats?
No, because you were raised a certain way, you have different genetics, like you have different experiences that have associated foods with. No, people have different taste pleasures, but you're talking about
Yes,
beating an animal.
like
You're talking about beating an animal and putting a knife in their throat, and you're saying it's justified because I like the way it tastes. My taste pleasure is very important to me. And I'm saying to you, well, what if I just said, you know what's really important is the way that it looks. I love looking at it. I like watching the knife go in the throat. You'd go, you're a psycho. I'd go, well, I like the sound of it. And you'd go, well, you're a psycho. That's morally wrong. You can't
yes,
beat dogs because you like the
it
sound of it. And
it's
I'm
actually
saying
I
you
guess pretty
can't beat.
similar to like if you like the sound of like cutting an onion or something too.
Yeah, but an onion
I
doesn't
think
have
it's more
feelings.
it's onions
You're
don't have.
saying
So you're saying
you're
it's
saying it's okay
just
to kill animals because you
animals
like
are
taste pleasure.
sentient, so it's just you just don't do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but you
Yes.
might cause, but it's fine to cause harm in like other areas of your life.
No.
That's within reason of practical.
Well, look, by living, we're going to cause harm, right? You taking a breath,
Yes,
you living in the house, electricity, all the energy, like, even if you weren't doing
yes,
all that, even if you were out in the wild, you're gonna cause harm. You're gonna potentially step on a bug. You're gonna take an apple, and really that apple could have been an animal's food or something, so you've possibly caused starvation or whatever, right? Like,
yes.
no matter
Like
what level you take it to, you're going to cause some level of harm, right? Like, it's
yeah,
impossible to avoid it entirely,
yes,
but unless you kill yourself. But that doesn't mean that you can't take the very easy practical steps today to at least reduce it as much as possible. I'll give you another example here, right? Because like if I went to a store and I had the two black shirts, you've probably heard me give this example before. It's like there's two black shirts. You find one on the rack is made from a company that forces people into slave labor, beats their employees, doesn't pay them, and it's just awful, right? And then there's another black shirt on another rack, and that black shirt doesn't do that. Just doesn't do that. They
yeah.
don't do anything
It's
good. They just literally don't do that. Which one morally is better to buy and
yes,
support?
like um the the one that doesn't hurt other humans.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
trying to like hurt humans, and I think eating meat doesn't like stopping eating meat like necessarily equate to hurting humans at all.
it does. It does. And I'm happy to get into that too. But I also don't think it matters because I think the trait that matters is sentience. But
I think
even if
I mean
let's just talk
we're
about.
gonna cause suffering to humans, but you're thinking like at an astronomical like
Yes.
rate that we cause
Yeah.
less suffering to humans by
Yes.
eating meat.
Yes. By not eating meat.
All
Yes.
right, I guess we could get into that, or
So even if you look, let's recap really quickly here. We're at the hour mark. Thank you all for your comments and everything. I know we've been like in the discussion, in the debate. I've been trying to throw a couple up here, and I love all of your comments and the side conversations that are going on there. You guys have had great input. But let's recap really quickly so far. Like we've talked about intelligence. I don't think it's justified that that's the trait that is chosen to decide whether a being gets kicked, stabbed, lives, dies.
yes, a lot of
It's
your examples cross the line of animal to human, and why we don't do certain things to animals that we do to humans.
But the reason why you're saying that is because of these individual traits, and so far none of them
Yes,
have
like
held up. None of them have held
I
up.
think they get held up fine. Like I don't think you completely disproved a lot of them or
Oh,
anything like that.
which one?
No,
Which one? I don't think so. I think they've all been debunked, not by me either, just in this conversation. Like these things have been brought up over and over again, but like pleasure is not a good
like
enough reason.
how do you debunk like taste pleasure not being a good reason? That's I mean that's just
Because just
different
like you
people's
couldn't,
way of thinking.
but you just couldn't,
For
you
me, it
couldn't
is. All right,
justify,
for me, it is. Or
but you couldn't,
anybody. What if I yeah like
but you couldn't
what if
justify
it's the
sound
best thing that
pleasure,
only makes
Chris.
me happy?
But Chris, you couldn't justify sound pleasure. and you can't tell me what the difference is between sound pleasure and taste pleasure, but yet you're saying one's okay,
Yes,
one's
I can
not.
tell you the difference because it's what I enjoy versus what I don't, and what most people I think.
Okay, but if we live in that
Despite how
world,
you're like
Chris, if we
raised.
live in that world, then it's just anyone can do anything because it's whatever they want to do.
Yes, I think we have the freedoms to like do that, within reason.
Okay, but what's within reason?
What is in reason here in America is the laws.
Okay, so it's
Like
just the laws.
basically, yeah, you could
So
pretty much do
legality
whatever you
does
want.
equal
Yeah, legality. Yeah.
legality equals morality to you. Whatever it is, the
No,
law
that's not
is
what I
what.
said at all.
Well, that is what you're
But
saying.
it's us, the people. So it's the majority like opinion usually.
So the
Is how
majority
these laws.
opinion is correct.
Yeah,
They've
for the
never
most
been
part.
wrong. We've never had incorrect laws that were immoral.
No, we definitely have had
Okay, so
some, and
legality
times have
doesn't equal
changed.
morality.
Where back then they thought that might have been a good idea, and now we realize no, that was a terrible idea.
Right. So legality does not equal morality. Just because something's legal does not make it moral. We can agree on that, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
in a
So then
sense
it
it
doesn't
does.
matter.
But in a sense it does.
No, it makes it what's accepted by society at that time, but that doesn't make it
Do you
moral.
think? Are you completely against eating animals is a legal right we should have?
Yes.
You're just completely against it. You say,
Just like
hey, it should be
I'm
banned to
against
eat animals. It should be banned to eat animals.
well, there's two
Like,
yes. No, no,
but
no, no.
in
Let
the
me
future
answer.
it
Let
might
me
be
answer.
in the future that might be really fine.
No, no, no. The
Right
only
now,
reason
that
no, no,
is
no.
not good. That would never be a good idea right now.
Right.
Never in any country, including the most wealthiest like neighborhoods in
There's
America
two
or whatever in the world.
there's two
You just
parts of that, Chris.
that doesn't
There's
make any sense.
there's two parts of that. Should it be banned? And is it the best strategy right this second to eliminate animal agriculture? Should it be
Like
banned?
we
Yes,
should be thinking about
absolutely.
what we
Just like
can do
dog
and
no,
whatever.
just like dog fighting should be banned, just like dog beating should be banned, whether for sound pleasure, taste pleasure, anything else, it doesn't matter. That should be banned. It should be banned.
Owning a dog should be banned.
Owning pets for your own pleasure and exploiting animals for your pleasure should be banned. Yeah, absolutely.
You're a pet owner?
I have companion animals, yes, that live in my house with me.
That's for your pleasure, brother.
No,
100%.
actually not.
You don't
I
get
have
any pleasure out of your animals, like unconditional love that they give and stuff like that most of the time.
well, hold on. I'm happy to discuss pets. Let me go back and answer the
Yeah.
question that you
I
first
think
asked.
I see
Because
like
hold
I
on,
think
hold
that
on.
proved my point, and that just proves what I was saying.
No, it doesn't.
I think.
No, it doesn't. I'll get to
Well,
it.
you
Hold
can
on.
say no, it doesn't. I can say yes, it does.
Yeah, but I'll back up what I'm going to say. So hold on. The
I
first
think
part,
I'm backing up what I've
the,
said.
the first part there,
Like,
the first part there, Chris. Should it be banned? Yes. I think it should be banned because it's morally wrong. We don't need to eat animals to survive. We don't need to wear their clothes to survive. We can live without those things. So why
I'm
should
just
we
grabbing
cause
more water.
harm?
Keep talking.
You're fine. So why should we cause harm to animals if we don't need to? Like, so should it be banned? Yes. I Murder is wrong, right? We talked about this before. Like, can you still hear me?
Yep. In most cases,
Right,
yes,
but
murder
in
is
a
wrong
certain
to humans.
in a certain circumstance, we would say killing is okay, like we talked about before, with like a justified reason of
Yes.
like self defense or something, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think just like that, there's no justifiable reason to hurt animals. So if you had a justified reason, like a lion was jumping across the table to kill you and you stabbed the lion, I'd go, man, I would be sad that the lion died, but ultimately I think you'd be justified in the kill. Like, but that's not what's happening. We're just doing this for pleasure. So I think it should be banned, absolutely. Now, the other part of that and why I hesitated is because I don't think it's the most effective thing, like you're talking about with legality and like the actual progression of how we're going to get to a vegan lifestyle world is going to be through other
Yes.
things. It's not going to be through a ban. If we put that forward, and we've seen this before with legislation, prohibition, things like that, where things get put forth as legislation, but the public doesn't back it, it doesn't end up working out. So before we put forth any laws, before we change the legality part of it, we do have to change the mentality. We do have to have more people on our side. We do have to have more people that care, right? So I don't
Yes.
think that it's the most efficient way to have a ban right now, but yes, eventually a ban will be necessary and it should be happening. So that will answer that question hopefully. Does that
Yes,
make
in the
sense?
future, and I think that's perfectly all right in the future.
So so
But
you
like
think in the future everyone should be vegan, just not you right now?
people's ways of thinking are going to be different in the future, but yeah, just not right now. We're living in 2021, and I think it's perfectly moral and fine.
But if somebody said
You
that
know,
during
moral,
if
legal, all of
but
the above.
if everyone took that philosophy, we'd still have slavery. Women wouldn't be able to vote.
No, I don't think we
Gays
would.
wouldn't have rights. Yeah,
We
because
wouldn't have
everyone would
slavery
just.
because we don't right now. We don't have slavery in America right now.
And
I
why is
mean,
that? And why is that?
but like, I
And
don't want
why
to get
is
into
that?
because we changed the way we thought
Yeah,
throughout time.
did everyone stick there
Throughout
and go,
time,
did everyone stick there and go,
did
"Hey, you
someone
know
wake
what?
up?
Eventually someone's going to do
Yes,
something about this." Did
and
everyone just sit around and do nothing or did people change?
some people that owned slaves probably woke up and was like, "Oh man, this is a bad idea. I don't know why I own slaves."
Right, but most people, they changed. They didn't sit around with your attitude and go, "Yeah, someday down
Yes,
the
but
road, it'll be
but
important for
I was telling
vegans."
you how like my change, like I mean, I could get into all my like good, healthy things for the ecosystem and animal suffering, but
And I think
like
that's
I don't think
great.
it's a competition. I think it's good.
No, I don't think so either, but I think
Like
if you're already taking those steps, then what you're saying is, "I care about animals, I want to reduce their suffering, so I'm doing these things." And I'm
yes,
saying, "Okay, so why not
or
continue that?"
yes, I think it's fine to continue it.
So you're gonna continue
I'm not
and
arguing. Like
eventually.
I said, I'm not arguing against veganism. I'm
Right,
arguing what my stance is. Is I think it's perfectly fine.
but you don't if you're thinking that you should reduce it. You don't think that it's
I
fine.
like I said, overconsumption in any area, I don't think is a good idea.
Okay, but
Like
let's if
I
I
don't
hit a
typically have
child.
water bottles. I usually just have this cup for 3 years,
Okay, but
just
if
using the same cup almost every single day
Chris
in the last
Chris
3 years. Like
no,
I
that's
think
great.
that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, Chris, but you're
Yes.
talking about, look, if I hit a
And you're
kid.
talking about starting like this whole different
No, if I hit
lifestyle.
no, Chris, look, it's really simple. If I hit a kid 3 times a day, and it's not for any reason, it's just I hit them for my own pleasure 3 times a day, and then I came to you and I said and you came to me and you said, "Hey, you should not hit your kid at all." And I said, "Well, I am trying to reduce, and so I'm gonna hit them once a month."
I think the better analogy is like you drive your car, this many miles a day. Can you reduce that? And like, because it's better for
But is it
the
possible
road.
for you to not in that circumstance, the question would be, is it possible for you to not drive at all? In my circumstance, it'd be, is it possible for you to not hit the child at all? You're saying
Like
reducing
I said,
is
I think this
is
is a
fine. I just
my
think
my
it's
my analogy is better because no one no one thinks like driving a car is most people think not drive your car as much as you want kind of thing.
well, I mean, it depends on who you ask, I
But
guess.
like most
But
people,
yeah,
I guess generally would say like then you get them caught up in that question was like, oh well, like why don't you ride your bike to work? And you're like, oh man, like it's it's 2 miles or whatever, so I have to ride home, and then I just get drained. I don't want to spend time with the kids. No one's gonna like say, oh no, like well since you drove your car, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. And I think that's like kind of the same thing with like eating animals
well,
because
there's a pretty big difference there because what you're talking about with driving a car is not causing a direct result that's intentional suffering to a being, right? We know that there's
to an
consequences
animal,
for to
and I think
any sentient
it
being. Where
does cause direct like you're gonna have bugs on the windshield. You're gonna run
okay,
over animals. It like I mean I don't know anybody that's like driven a car that hasn't hit some form of
sh-
animal,
sure, okay, yeah,
and
I
it's
would
like
agree with
so
that.
that's direct enough. But it's like
But okay,
we,
I think I thought you were going down the
yes,
path of like
like
environmentalism, not so
should
much
we
like direct hitting of a bug. So sure,
well,
like
like I mean, you brought like hitting a kid. That's why I'm saying like that analogy. Like obviously we could agree that's wrong, but I don't think hitting a bug or running over a squirrel that jumps out in the front of my car is wrong.
Well,
Like
but there wouldn't be
I don't
intention.
like. I'm like,
If
oh man, like I wish it didn't happen,
if you wish it didn't
but
happen, then
like
why
I
don't you
wish it
just
didn't happen.
avoid it? Like there's the intention there,
Just
Chris.
avoid it. Like, where do you draw the line then?
I'm
You
drawing
just
the line with your let's talk about food consumption, right? Because
like food consumption,
this
yeah.
isn't
Like
like
I
I
said, no, don't
accidentally
overconsume.
no, but this isn't like I accidentally put an animal in my mouth. Oh no. It's not like I was taking a bite of an apple and a bug flew into my mouth and I killed the bug in my mouth. What should I do? You're paying
Yeah,
someone to stab an animal in the throat and chop up their body, and then you're eating their body. There is
yes, an
intentionality.
animal's body
But there's intentionality there.
that
I don't
most
when
of
I
the time
drive a
was like
car
farmed to
when I
use
drive a
for
car,
consumption.
Chris, when I drive a car, I don't go out try to hit squirrels. I don't
No,
try
no
to
one
hit
does.
animals, right? So
For the most part, no one does.
right. And so you're saying if I can avoid hitting the animals, would you swerve the car to avoid the squirrel a little bit? Like, would you try to not hit them?
Not a squirrel. Squirrel.
You wouldn't try to avoid it at all. You would just
No,
fuck
because
them.
it's
I'm gonna hit the
dangerous to
squirrel.
swerve. It's dangerous to swerve. You're supposed to just slow down and remain your course of speed.
Okay, so you would try to
Like
avoid by hitting them
that's
some
what they
way.
tell you in the
Okay.
DMV classes. So like
Okay.
no, I
Let's
wouldn't,
not be
like no,
coy
I
with the
wouldn't.
words.
But like what? I
Let's
mean, I
you
think it
would
all
stop
matters. Like
you would stop the car. You would try to not hit them.
yeah, if but if I'm on the highway,
So why not just
I
do
can
that
do
in other
anything.
aspects of your life?
Why not like go
Like
to the
well,
store and look
just
at
a
every label and not get the pleasure from eating certain foods that I think are pleasurable or going out to eat? Can I reduce? Yes. Do I reduce? Yes. Do I think those are all good things because I don't want to overconsume? But like I'm a big foodie. I mean, look up the Tucson Wing Expert. There's a reason why I review chicken wings. Like there's a pleasure I get from that and like the action it is.
but
Same
now
thing.
you're going back to
The
pleasure.
barstool pizza guy couldn't do pizza reviews. Yeah,
But
which I think is a justifiable point.
but
So
if you
like,
take
is it
Chris,
practical and possible? Yes. Like, like, can I avoid it at all costs? Like, yeah, I can. But can I avoid driving at all costs? I probably can. I could probably do a lot of things at all costs. But like, where do you draw the line at just a very specific thing
yeah.
that helps, and that's eating animals, and it's large. It's a large thing, but it is very specific
Yeah. I
to
actually think
all the things we do
I think
while
un
living on this earth in Arizona.
I think unintentionally you've stumbled upon what I think is like the best thing to discuss about veganism. Like, and I think it's the most honest thing that people can talk about when they say, well, what's the line? Right. Because ultimately, like I had this conversation with Peace with Reese when he was on the stream where
Yeah.
we were talking about who's vegan, who's not vegan, what reducing is enough. When do you get your vegan
Yes.
card? When do you get it
Vegans
taken
that get
away?
mad at other vegans, like
Right?
because
Yeah.
they're not doing it the way they're doing it, and
Yeah, and this happens all the time,
yes,
right? Because
yes.
what's good enough, right?
Like
So,
I don't want to live in that world right now. Like someone think of a perfect thing, and I could try it down the road or something. But right now, perfectly moral and fine.
but here's the question, right? Because
Yeah,
I've thought about this and I think like, okay, well, this is a good point because really, what is veganism? Veganism is like reducitarianism with specific definitions, right? Because we're not
yeah,
eliminating. You're not eliminating all suffering
yeah,
by living a
yeah,
vegan lifestyle, right?
yeah,
You're reducing, right? So
yeah.
it's like if you're going to reduce, um, what reducing is enough, right? And I think this is where it's
Yeah. What if we
here.
reduce the same amount? What
Here's
if
the
we're on the same line and then we could just be like, oh, but he eats meat?
Sure. Okay, but here's the point, and here's where I would say that that's different, and why I would say it's not acceptable with your circumstances, because at the end of the day, you're not actually trying to like measure this out as far as like how many animals you're suffering compared to like a typical vegan and like trying to do enough and make sure that it's enough. Like you're trying to use the things that you do on one end to justify your behavior on the other end. There isn't actually the intentionality of living a life while reducing. And the point of why vegans draw the specific line at like avoiding animals in food and exploitation for like entertainment and products and stuff like that is because of one, the vast impact that they have, right? Like it's huge. We're talking about trillions of animals, and we're talking about not just the animals, we're talking about human beings that are suffering. We're talking about the environment that's being destroyed. We're talking about our own health. We're talking about a lot of different things. So the impact is just massive. And there's intentionality in that decision, right? Because we know that with our dollars, we are funding that we're paying for someone to stick a knife in an animal's throat. And where that's different for other things that you could point to, like driving a car or like using technology and stuff like that, is people are not intent. There's not like, if I buy this phone today, an animal's going to die. Except for with food, there is that, right? Because the animal already had to die to be on your plate. So there's not like an intentional harming. And there's also still just like an effort to reduce, even though we know that we're not going to be perfect, even though that we're not going to hit elimination, we're reducing and we're choosing the most important things to reduce. If you eat animals and then you are trying to say that you're somehow making up for it in other ways, I think you're absolutely incorrect. I think you have no way of backing that statement because the impact of eating animals is so large. There's nothing else that we're doing on this planet that is killing trillions of animals every
Yeah,
single year.
I think war is worse.
But there's not trillions.
Like
There's
in
not trillions of
animals,
animals. There's not
yes,
trillions of animals dying in war.
yes, there are.
What trillions of animals are dying in war?
Any animals that exist in those war areas.
You think there's
A bomb,
trillions?
a bomb takes out everything with it. Like
You think there's trillions
uh,
of animals on a
the
battlefield?
backlash of a nuclear bomb was huge for the animals. Like that. I mean, it
You
was.
think that killed
That's.
trillions of animals? Do you have studies to back this up? You have any evidence?
Did we also basically birth these animals too? Did we bring in life for these animals? That's the farming one. It's like we brought them in
But
too.
you think every year, annually, there are trillions of animals being killed annually. And you think that wars or some other activity we are doing is killing out more animals than
Then then a
trillions
cow.
every
No,
single year.
but other animals, just whatever, and yeah.
No. That's just factually
Animals come
inaccurate. I'm
big
gonna have
and
to
small, and we don't farm the super small ones most of the time.
ask you to back that up with some sort of evidence.
I think. Well,
What evidence do you have that
you don't
wars
think
cause
you don't
more animals to die than
you
animal
don't think
agriculture?
dropping a nuclear bomb killed millions of rodents and all those things.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did not kill
Yeah,
trillions of animals annually.
and and you're just talking about pigs, cows, goats, sheep, like those main ones, and fish or
Well,
fish in
yeah,
that.
fish is in the
Like,
trillions. All the other animals are in the
we kill a
billions.
lot of fish by our touch on the ocean.
Yeah, but these are only the animals that we're actually talking about to even
So
just be farmed for food. Like we're not
I'm
even
just giving
talking about
examples how we harm without,
but
just
all
by
that but
existing.
Chris, all of those examples would just be other things that we should do to not harm animals. All you would be doing is pointing out another way that we can live even better, right? And if you care about animals to where we shouldn't harm them through wars or anything else, then why wouldn't
Like
we also do
if
that through our diet? Why wouldn't we
if we
also
had
do
the
that through our
option,
entertainment choices? Why wouldn't we do that in other areas of our life?
yeah,
Why
if we
pick
had the option
wars?
of why pick wars? I was just giving random examples, but you keep giving me either kick a rock or kick a kid, like like
No, I'm
you
saying
know
I'm
like
asking you about your
I'm,
specific example
and
right
then you're
now,
like, well,
Chris.
that's it. Clearly you don't like to harm anything like that.
No,
Is
Chris, I think like I think a lot of times people really want to
I don't think anybody's.
overcomplicate this. I think
Yeah,
they really want to overcomplicate it, and they have to
I
point
think
to
the line is
absolutely
it's fine to eat animals,
no, it's
and it's like
overcomplicating because it's really look, you're like trying to point to this is like wars, though. Like we should focus on reducing wars for the animals' benefits rather than our diet.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. I'm not saying
And
that
then
wars
everybody that
have
eats meat just hates animals and just like they're
no,
just
no, Chris.
suffering.
I'm
Like
just saying like
that's
there's
not how I don't think that's how I feel that I don't think that's how you feel.
I don't feel
Like
how what
truly.
that I don't feel what. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Like people are like bad people because they eat animals. Like obviously we have the we're talking right now and it's like you're not
Yeah.
like, oh man, I freaking can't. I don't think you're going to get off and be like, oh, I just can't stand this guy because you know he eats meats and he's kind of stuck in his ways right now. But you can see his wheels are turning, you know. But like, I just can't stand his rebuttals because to me they don't make a lot of sense, but to him they make perfect sense.
Well, I think they do make a lot of sense. I mean, and I think they make a lot of sense for a lot of people, and that's I mean, I think every single one of the things that you've brought up, whether it be taste, pleasure, intelligence, all of these sorts of things, like
Proficiency.
I think
I don't know what that relates to. What proficiency? I don't know.
proficiency is politicians here. His question dodging proficiency is
Oh,
it's like
got
as
it.
good as a
Like I'm
politician.
dodging
Look, I
because like
don't think
I
no,
can
Chris,
ask
Chris,
you
Chris, let me
questions
respond.
like,
Let me respond.
hey,
Chris, Chris,
like
Chris, 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 let me
you had to
respond.
kick one. It's an animal or a cat. It's a horse or a cow, and
Chris,
I had a gun to your head. Which one are you kicking? Oh well,
let me
sounds like
respond.
you would not kick any of them and get your head blown off.
Chris, let me
So
respond.
clearly, yeah.
I don't think that you're a bad person because you've eaten animals. I ate animals for 27 years before becoming a vegan and stopping to eat animals and started living with the intentionality of trying to reduce suffering on this planet. So,
Is your
uh,
personal life like a lot better? I know
oh,
you had good health
literally
reasons.
every part of my life is better except for there are struggles, but even the struggles
Yes.
are totally like worth
Like
it
you say, you get
compared to
some
oh yeah, you
hate,
get
and like
hate.
the average vegetarian or vegan is like more depressed than the average
No, I don't
non.
think that's the case. I think that like we just deal with a lot of social surroundings that are really tough. And those things are
Yes,
inconvenient. Looking at a restaurant sometimes could be inconvenient, things like that. But the benefits of living in alignment with my morals, the benefits of knowing that I'm trying to reduce suffering to humans,
yes,
animals, the environment, and doing what I can there is far outweighs any of those cons. So yeah, my life
yeah.
is way better as a vegan. But let me
What
just
you just
finish.
explained, what you just explained, is how I feel with my current eating.
Right. So, but why? But then factually, what you're eating is causing a lot of problems for humans, for
What
animals, and for our planet.
we're all going to cause a lot of problems by existing.
Yeah, but
That's
the
like a problem
active,
we all have to
but
figure
the act,
out and
right?
do
But
it.
the
You know,
active,
we're doing it
but the
what we can.
but the act of eating animals is far more detrimental than other choices. So where should you focus if you're being honest here, Chris, and you're saying I actually do care about these things. Like I care about animals,
Yes,
I care
like
about the planet, I care about human beings. And then we're
yes,
saying, okay, let's say that we're in a brainstorming session and we said, "Hey, Chris, um let's come up with the areas that we should focus on for changing the planet." Because you and I both care about these things. You and I both care about animals suffering, the environment, human suffering. We cared about these things. We should go take a look at what's causing the most harm and focus there. Wouldn't you agree that that would be a good strategy?
sorry, I'm reading
You're fine.
the comments. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. I haven't caught
I know
up.
I haven't been too wrapped up in the
What was a
comments.
good? It was what was a good strategy? Summarize
I
it just real quick again.
if you and I were both sitting here brainstorming, we both said, "You know what? Here's some things that we care about. We care about animal suffering, we care about human suffering, we care about the
Yes,
planet being destroyed because that affects humans and
yes,
animals." And we
like
said, "Let's figure out some solutions to this." Don't you
yes.
think don't you think that it would be valuable to go and look for the things that are causing the most problems and try to change them? Don't you
The,
think that would be a
the
good strategy?
yes, and
Okay.
that's why I don't eat just like
But the number
off of
one
pleasure all the time,
cause
you know, or overconsume.
But the number one cause of
like
all of these things
or
is
eating animals,
animal agriculture.
animal agriculture.
So why wouldn't we just
Like
I constantly look for the reason as to why we should kill
that's like
animals.
that's like very broad because animal agriculture is just like animals living on this earth, essentially. Like that's
But
or like more specifically, I guess you're just talking about just like farming certain animals
farming animals for food consumption specifically,
for.
as well as byproducts for leather and other stuff like that, but mostly for food consumption, is
So
the
what
biggest contributor to pretty much every problem that you and I are talking about.
like the biggest like not like ideologies and like war, like
Well, I
over
could say
consuming on animals
ideologies,
is a
but
bigger problem
the
than those
ideology,
things.
I think the ideology of
Like
exploiting other beings is the biggest problem. Sure, if we're going to talk ideologies,
yes,
but like
so
the
pigs are
actual
above
physical,
animals,
but
right?
the actual physical act of raising animals for food is the biggest problem here, right? So it's like, look, if we say that we care about the environment, like we're talking about the leading cause of rainforest deforestation, we're talking about the leading cause of oceanic dead zones, top 3 contributors to greenhouse gases, the number 1 use of our land, the number 1 use of our water. We're talking about all of these things that are just massive. Like we're not talking about, hey, you know what, for the environment we should give up plastic straws and debating the merit of that, right? We're
Is it
talking
because
about
like
the
no
thing that's
matter what we
causing the most
produce has like
problems.
been used to like farm? Like
What's that?
you're just, I mean, it's a very blanket statement just to say like, yeah, this causes all, and like you could be like, yeah, like all right, because people on farms use cars and transport all this stuff. So now like then you just group like cars with like farming.
But
Like
it's no, no, no.
like
It's specific to
do you
animal.
think
No, no,
it would
no.
destroy the ozone if we just all had our own like mini farm and just was like ate sustainably on that like
No,
land?
there's no
Like
way of reducing as far as better than a vegan or plant-based diet. If we switch to a plant-based diet as a society and as a global solution to the problem, we would reduce, according to the UN report, which is the most comprehensive study ever done on the relationship between animal agriculture, or I mean, not animal agriculture in general, and the environmental problems. The number one way of reducing would be all of us living a vegan lifestyle, which
yeah.
and eating a plant-based
Or
diet lifestyle, which would reduce our greenhouse gases from farming by 73% and reduce our land use
and what
by
was
up
the
to
runner up
75%.
to animal agriculture?
Um, I think it was, I'd have to look at what the actual runner-up is. I don't want to take a guess.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what are some examples? Or
like Mediterranean type of diets. They talked about like ethical omnivorism and stuff like that. But none of them were even close to veganism. And ultimately, like when I talk
no,
about the numbers,
like
they're not big blanket statements. They're very specific facts. The rainforest deforestation is up to
like
91%
like
caused
nuclear
by animal
fusion or
agriculture.
something? Is it like compared to like nuclear fusion, or was it just like animal agriculture compared to like other things we produce?
No,
Just
no, no.
anything we produce, or what it?
No, no.
I'm
That
trying.
study,
I'm trying to think like what is this like a category, or is it just like, yep, animal agriculture? That's the worst.
it's the worst. But that study specifically is talking about the effects of our diets on the environment and what are the choices there, not in comparison to other things. If you want to look at studies in comparison for other things, you're going to look at what's causing like the most greenhouse gases and stuff like that, which, depending on what study that you look at, animal agriculture is going to be number 1 through number 5. If you take a look at what's causing the most land use, animal agriculture. If you talk about what's using the most clean water, animal agriculture. If you talk about what's destroying the rainforest, animal agriculture. If you talk about what oceanic dead zones are being caused by, animal agriculture. Across the board, animal agriculture's impact on our environment is massive, which affects all of us, including humans. So if you say that you care about humans and you care about the environment, why wouldn't we take a look at the number one problem and go,
Yes, let's take a
we
look
need to
at it.
change that?
Is there a better way to farm? Like, is there a better way to not like
No,
no other alternatives?
there's not, because ultimately
Is
what people,
reducing an alternative?
if you reduce, like
Like
I forget what the exact
that's why I'm
statistic is
like
on
saying,
this, but it's like
can it even be reduced? Is there like literally? I want to know what's on this like list that this is. the worst. Like, what are the other things causing the Amazon rainforest, like furniture?
No, it's
Because I mean,
mostly
it does make sense. Like, it does make sense.
it's
So I'm
mostly
not
like
saying like
it's animal agriculture for like up to 91% of it, and then the remaining part of it is for other products like palm oil, wood products, things like that. But most of it's
like
animal agriculture.
what products damage the environment.
Well, they're clearing up to 90% of the rainforest
Yeah,
for animal agriculture. Sorry,
like
not up to 90% of the rainforest. Let me make sure I'm very clear. Up to 90% of the rainforest that's being cleared is
yes,
for animal agriculture.
yeah, for their lives, so they could, I guess, live. I don't know.
No, it's to
Sounds like we're
raise
doing it for animal lives.
No, but we're doing it to raise cows and feed them soy, so that way that they can ship it out to first world countries and people can eat the cows.
Yeah, and we're probably doing it so they could produce fertilizer, so we could grow vegetables.
No, they
No,
do it so we can eat cows.
like I mean, animal products are so vast.
Yeah,
There's so much.
they find some other
So
uses,
like
but the reason for doing
so
it
like those
is to
things
eat
all
them.
just incorporate what like this, this earth gives us, and it's like, yeah,
No,
like we could slow it down. No, you don't think we could slow it down?
no.
I mean, that's probably
Because
like,
look, what
can
other
we
decision
can't
can
stop it, or
you could say like, "Hey, you know what? We could reduce this rainforest deforestation and reduce it a little bit if everyone would
yes.
just cut back on some meat consumption." But
Yeah, I think I just would
ultimately
rather live in a world where like the pleasures and not to worry about it um kind
but
of
that would be
outweigh,
just
like just weren't like I think just outweigh um
but
more
then
animal suffering
you're
or
just
planet suffering,
but
I
then you're
guess.
just literally putting your taste, pleasure, and convenience above all future
And everybody
generations,
else's and every
ab
other human.
above no, because
Like,
what would be best for humans is if we transitioned to vegan lifestyles, plant-based diets. So if you really
not
care
not
if you
possible then. I don't think, right? It's I don't think it is possible.
yeah, it's happening already. It's happening right
Yes.
now, and it's going
Yes,
to
over
continue.
time, right? Over time.
Yeah, and you can be a part and probably will be a part of that change.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
but I'm asking you, like,
I think I'm doing it right now.
what's preventing you from doing it today? Like, what's preventing you from being a part of the solution that you wanna be a part of?
Like,
What's
start
preventing
start small, start somewhere.
Yeah, but why aren't you
I mean,
why
I believe I already started, but you're saying like, major leap, it's all or nothing.
but
But
why
then,
stop?
but what was your sign off? It's like, don't think about what you can't do, think about
Think
what
of
you
what you
can
can do.
do.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, I could think about going out for vegan meals or cooking vegan meals
yeah, so do that.
and being, yeah, so I do it.
But
Do I
I
do it
think
all the time? No.
well,
I think the I think the pleasures are good.
I think you should set the intentionality to hit a certain level and to do that. I mean, if we compare it to other moral issues, again, like beating a child 3 times a day, of course, anybody would agree that beating a child once a month is better than beating a child 3 times a day, but
Yes.
really
But
we should have the goal to eventually
different analogy, I
not
think
beat the
once
child at
again,
all, right? It would be ideal to not eat you agree basically that veganism is more in
I
alignment with
think
your
you
own
agree
morals.
what I'm doing is fine.
No, 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 I'm
I think
saying
according to your morals, you're
Mm,
like,
no, are you gonna be vegan? Are you going until you're going to reach what's possible and practical for you to stop eating animals?
yeah, I'm going in that direction.
Okay. And will you set that as your goal to like because it sounds like Chris, like and
Like,
we've been going back and forth and also we've
yeah,
gone back and forth and like we've gone back and forth in comments before. We've had side conversations and stuff like that there. And I'm super happy that we have you on because like again,
yeah,
I will say this,
and like
like
my pleasures and how I
you
feel. I
you
think that's my barometer, or that's where I'm going to judge what I think is good.
No, like, look, what I'm saying is, I think what ultimately is being said is that you're saying that living a vegan lifestyle, and let's define what that is by specific metrics, because obviously, again, there's no perfection line, right?
Yes,
So
I
so
don't
what's
think I want to live a vegan lifestyle because you, like I said, like it is hard. You want to cause as little as animal suffering as possible. Human, animal suffering, everything, all suffering, planet
Right.
suffering.
But
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
be a part of the change that does that through, like, let's just talk about the most major way, which would be just giving up animal products in your diet.
like
And ultimately, I
what
understand where
if
you're
I
coming
shared
from.
a meat meal with my neighbor and we became lifelong friends, and we broke bread, but I just indulged in what he was cooking, which was chicken, and we lived better lives for knowing each other and the planet.
Look,
Like
I
like I
think
said, let's think of practical and possible.
right, but here's my point, right? Because you and Reggie, I appreciate your comment here. Walter unintentionally circled back to your veganism isn't enough debate. Yeah, and when I say, like, what's enough is enough, right? So it's like, and I
Yes,
Reggie, I don't know exactly the intention behind the comment here, but hopefully you were here when I said the, like, beginning part, or you were on the other stream when Peace with Reese was on. We were talking about who's vegan enough, who gets a vegan card, who gets it taken away, right? I think a good example of this is someone that's living as, like, a teenager, right? And their parents won't let them, like, they have control over them. They're still their legal guardian. They'll let them give up meat and stuff like that, but they will not let them give up dairy products for whatever reason or something like that, right? And it's like, that person, let's say that they're intentionally out there living the best they can, like, they're avoiding all the animal products that they can, that their parents will allow them. They're avoiding, like, their parents have let them stop buying leather and stuff like that. And so they're being as, like, vegan as they can, but they are actually still eating animal products. Like, are we gonna go, "Oh, you know what? That person's not a vegan. We're gonna take away their vegan
yes.
card because of this." Like, no, I'm not.
Like
No one's the vegan
hunters that live
police.
in the wilderness are like more vegan than you. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
yeah,
I
but
think
it's
there's a
like
good example. I gave that example too, where there's,
yeah,
like, someone could be out in the
possible
wild.
and practical. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but
Start small, start somewhere. Don't think about what you can't do. Start looking at what you can do.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
And I think you
just
can
slogans, right?
I agree with that, and I think you can give up animal products in your diet entirely. I don't see any reason why you can't do that. And
Yeah,
when you do that, you won't even be giving up that much. Like, that's the reality of it. I understand that there's a lot of people that are, like, really afraid of what they'll be giving up, but man, the food that I eat now is more pleasurable for a variety of reasons. You talk about
yes,
taste pleasure and you put a
like
lot of importance on taste pleasure, but there are
yes,
pleasures in this world that are more pleasurable than taste. And
yes,
I think the act of, like, giving is one of them. I think the act of, like, trying to be kind and compassionate is one of them. I think living in alignment with what your morals are is one of them. I think there's a lot of pleasures that equate to well-being. Taste is one
yes.
of them, but I don't put it pretty high on the scale. And
And those are different
ultimately,
for person to person.
right, but I don't think ultimately the taste that you have to give up can't be replaced by mock products, seasoning, spices, all this sort of stuff. So you're still gonna get a ton of taste pleasure,
Yes,
and
like
you get all the other pleasures of knowing what you're doing, giving, being more compassionate. You're also going to probably, if especially if you stick
like
to, like, plant-based stuff, like, that's not mock stuff too much, you're going to be living a healthier lifestyle. You're going to be causing less harm to other humans and stuff. There's a lot of well-being and pleasure that you get from living a vegan lifestyle and eating a plant-based diet, and it's far better than the taste pleasure that you'll get from eating a dead body.
like
Like, that's just, I mean, obviously, I've lived both lifestyles. I've lived where I used to eat more meat and animals than anybody I know. I did not give a shit about anything pretty much but myself. And I've also lived this lifestyle where I am intentionally trying to live as good as possible. And I have not sacrificed taste pleasure. I still eat tons of tasty food and stuff like that, a lot of it much better than what I used to eat, and I know all the benefits from living this type of lifestyle morally, and I can honestly say I feel way more pleasured and more pleasure living this lifestyle than the
yes,
previous one, and
regardless of all the backlash and the inconveniences and everything as a whole.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, just, like,
Was it?
think about it again in a human context. Like, you would feel better not punching a human than you would feel punching a human. Even if you liked hitting things,
Yeah.
like, if the act of hitting something made you feel good and you went,
Yes.
like, you hit a
Like a
punching
punching
bag
bag.
and
Yeah.
you're like, no, I'd rather hit a human's face. But you know that like the pain that it's going to cause you by going down the street and like the pain that you're causing to other people. So like that's even though you would rather punch a human's face, you would probably just punch the punching bag and feel better about your decisions as a human being. And so I just think like Chris, like I think you're an intelligent human being. And I think that you're probably more kind and caring than you let on. And I think like you're saying, like start small, start somewhere. I agree. I just think I don't know what the reason is for you to not just go to this line, this specific line. I agree that it is a specific line where it's like, okay, well, why is that far enough and stuff? And I think
Yes.
why
What if I
that's
or
go ahead.
what if I switch and I feel worse or I don't like it?
In what way?
You said it enhances your life
Mhm.
and for all these reasons, all the reasons you just listed.
Yeah.
I switch and it doesn't, and it's the opposite.
Well,
Because that's the case for people that try, if you will. But then they're like, ah, shit, maybe I feel just more terrible now because like I think I care, but my life has just been not as great as it once was.
Well, I think again, like I don't think it should revolve around your pleasure. I think those are side benefits. I think more of it's moral stance, right? Like even if somebody got a lot
Yeah.
of pleasure out of taking advantage of women or something like that, and then they tried not taking advantage of women and they were
Yes.
like, ah, man, I really
So
miss it. Like the pleasure is not enough to cause another being harm. So I
because
think,
of your morals, like not eating meat has just been a whirlwind of pleasure for you.
yeah, I mean, again, not without struggles, and it's really not about me. I think again, the first step is that it's about the other beings that are being enslaved and hurt and stuff, right? And then the next step is the other beings that are being hurt through the other consequences, like humans and the environment and everything else, right? And then it's about yourself and how you're hurting yourself and everything else too. But even just on the first scale of animals, just like I just gave with the example, I don't think that pleasure, like if I was the type of person who previously took advantage of women and raped women or something like that, and then I tried living a lifestyle of not doing that thing, I don't think I would be justified in going back to do that thing just because I said, you know what, I tried and I didn't find it as pleasurable as I thought I would, not raping women. Like, so I think when you're causing harm to another being, you have to take the other being into the consideration. And so
Yes,
I
but
think that that should be enough to say no.
I'm saying
But
it's all right not to take account animals into the like
yeah, I understand that
hey,
you've said
I
that.
know flying to Hawaii, I'm gonna get on an airplane and it's just gonna be for a pleasure to go to
Mhm.
Hawaii, and I know I'm gonna snorkel and maybe have some kind of impact on the environment there,
Yeah.
and that's all just for pleasure,
Mhm.
like so like I think that's just morally fine, and that's kind of where like I don't take into the consideration of what animals I'm harming by doing that.
But
I'm not
will
gonna
your
worry about it,
decision
and I'm just gonna live a happy life
but will
with
your
the
decision to
pleasures of
snorkel
this earth.
will your decision to snorkel directly cause a sentient being to get a knife in their throat?
Yeah, because I'm gonna go to like a luau and they're have a whatever the pig on the
The yeah,
stick,
okay, but your first example was I'm gonna fly in
like
a plane and there's
that,
gonna be
and they do that for
you
like tourists, and
you
and that's
you don't
their
even have to do
culture.
that. You don't even have to do that for pleasure. You could just sit in your apartment and you're gonna
Yes,
cause some sort of harm just by using
yes.
energy and being alive.
And I think it's fine to not think about those things. And I think, like, yeah, like I think it's fine. Like, hey, like I could just look around my room and be like, ah, man, I probably shouldn't have got this an Xbox and a PS4, like, but I like them
Yeah,
both,
I
and that's for
but I
pleasure, and it caused more harm than I needed to do. But like, couldn't I just
yeah,
be happy with just the Xbox? I like mostly just that Halo series, anyways, with PlayStation, or like, you that's like kind of your examples where I'm saying like, no, I'm not going to think about it. I think it's perfectly healthy and morally fine not to think about those things. I think animal suffering, like, yeah, I don't want to over cause. suffering of any kind. But
Well,
like
and I
if
think
you're saying this one's just like so much worse than the other forms, like
that's what it
that's
is.
just that's farming. So you're just saying like, but we can't, and there's no alternatives to a happier, healthier, less like more sustainable farms.
Well,
I think that's
there's
ridiculous to say. And
no,
also,
there's
we got to wrap this up in 11 minutes. So
yeah,
just
yeah.
at the 2 hour mark.
We can continue in another conversation, but I think like ultimately no, like what you alluded to is exactly right. Should we take into consideration the PlayStation 4 and an Xbox, and should you have maybe bought one, because that would be better? I think so. I think we should take that into consideration. I really do. I think people like to point to stuff like that all the time and go like, "Well, what about like your cell phone or what about this and that?" And it's like,
Yeah,
I agree. We should take those things into consider. We should think about them and try to make the
yeah,
most ethical choice that we can. But what you also alluded to was the scale and intentionality behind it too, and also the necessity. For instance, I have to have technology to live my life and to
yes. I
provide for
think,
my family, right?
I think
Like,
farms are like a necessity.
yeah, they are. Of course, we need food, but
Like,
we don't need animal farms. We just
like,
need food. Like, but the point is
yes,
it's the scale, the intentionality. It's like it's all the impact, right? And you alluded to it to yourself, like the impact of the PlayStation 4 as an additional purchase and everyone
yeah.
buying a
Do
PlayStation
we have
4
more
is l
cows now
is
than we did
yes.
300 years ago?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing
No.
for animals?
No.
No, it's not a good thing for cows. More
No, because
opportunity of life.
no, because the cows that are alive
They're
are only
sentient.
alive because but they're having miserable existences and they're not
Are
living
they? How
their
do we
natural life.
measure an animal's pleasure on a farm?
How
Can
do I
that be
measure
solved?
how do I
Can
measure your
we?
pleasure?
I measure my pleasure.
But how I if I'm gonna
And
choose
I can't. And it's unmeasurable.
it
Like you
is.
can't measure it.
Yeah, but we know that
So how do you know for a fact some of the animals that we raise are miserable existences? Sounds like some of them are decent existences or good. Can
um
they be? I'm sure
but
they can.
but you're you're if we want to just go off of what can be measured in pleasure and stuff like that, and we wanted to go down a real philosophical route, you wouldn't be able to prove that you exist. Right? Like, I wouldn't be able to
Yeah,
prove that you actually physically exist in this plane. Like, so if we go down that route, then basically all things are justified. Murder, rape, slaves, whatever, because I can't prove that anybody is feeling anything. But what we can point to is like reasonable doubt that, hey, animals have nervous systems like we do. They express when they've like if you hit a dog, you know that they're feeling pain and stuff. Like there's all these things that we can say, the probability is that they're feeling pain. And I can look at you and say the same thing. The probability, Chris, is that you feel pain. And I can say that because
yeah,
I know what pain is. But just like you can say you see blue and I can say I see blue, really, what is the color? And can you ever prove that the blues are
yeah,
actually the same? We can't. So I can't prove that you're feeling pain. But I'm going to give you
yeah.
the benefit of the doubt that you do. And because of that, I'm not going to stick a knife in your throat.
So yeah, like animals can be have more pleasure, and there's more animals on this planet because we do farm them.
No,
Why not?
because of the
Like, I mean, right? Like,
because you're talking about like breeding animals and all of this the bad effects that come from that. Like so for instance, again, in order to have those cows, we have to breed them and stick our hands up their anus and then we rip away their babies for dairy and all this sort of stuff. Like we're not talking about, oh, there's a cow that we found in the wild, let's give it the best
yeah,
life possible. We would be talking about an animal rescue, some sort of
but
sanctuary. We
we
wouldn't be
can't
talking
farm
about
animals in a
farms.
different way. One day
No,
that
because
so
even in
you're just dismissing any I think solutions in the right direction. And you just say no, like the only way is to stop farming animals. But it's like no, we
yeah,
can't just do that right now. We
we
can't do
can.
that in the age of 2021.
We can. Tamcon, thanks
But
for joining here. It's past your bedtime, but thank you
there's
very much for joining. I appreciate it. We're gonna wrap up here in a couple of minutes anyway. But here's the thing, Chris, about the last thing, and then we can cut out after this, and then we can maybe reconvene and continue the conversation because
all right.
I think it's been fruitful. I enjoy your point of views. I just
I think
think,
I
like
have
you
more
say,
insight on this than the last guy. So I just didn't want you to
no,
like.
I think we should
He had
continue
one
this.
like very specific like reasons, and I think I have a lot more.
Yeah, I think so here's the thing. You say like is there a better way like than what we currently do that could still involve animals? Well, again, just like there could be a better like you could beat a child once a month instead of 3 times a day. Is it better? Yes. So are you if you're asking me like if we reduced animal suffering by half through different farming methods, would that be better than the current animal suffering?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Or if they're in the
obviously
wild, are animals in the wild like not suffering as much as animals on farms?
yeah,
And it's like there's just no way to prove one way or the other. So like, can we make we know what we can do, which is make farms, better. Like meat tastes better when like the animals are taken care of. Like
okay,
it's
but
like
you're
it's proven.
the
It's proven.
child tastes better when I took care of the child better. Like that's not, it doesn't matter because we harmed another being that shouldn't be harmed out of our own taste pleasure and stuff. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. But like here's the point, Chris, is like yes, any form of reduction is better than doing it full blast. But the ultimate thing that you said that's incorrect is
have you ever
we
wanted to
can't stop.
taste human flesh?
No.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Because I was raised in a culture that has provided enough structure to think like that's not correct. I mean, if it was one of those things where like again in a survival situation, yeah, I'd eat human flesh. Uh if it's a thing where it was like yeah, I don't know. That's a weird tangent. I don't know that we can maybe save that for the
Yeah,
next
like
one, right? And we can discuss. I know we didn't get into some of the other things too, where we didn't get into like pets in a lot of detail and stuff like that. And I'd love my
yeah.
chance to explain what my thoughts are there and stuff, since I haven't made a pet video yet. But the thing that you said that is incorrect is that we can't stop doing this. And yes, we absolutely can. We can stop farming animals. We can all live on plant-based diets. We can stop doing
Every
this.
person on this world,
At least every person in the first world countries that are causing the majority of the problems and suffering. Yes. Yeah.
which
So it's
which
like,
is like just America. So just Americans have to go by these rules,
no, I mean, Europe,
like
China, all these
or
places.
should.
Yeah, all the places that can live without it, which is most
Yeah,
of the world, should do it. But like the thing is like that starts with
I'm
people
just
like
not sure
you.
I'd be happier with it, with
Well,
doing it.
even if you weren't, it's still worth doing. It's worth it to
Mm.
sacrifice some of your potential selfish pleasure for the greater good of not only the animals, but other humans, the environment, and everything else. And I think ultimately, like, you agree with all of that. So I just think that that should be
Yeah,
the goal. I think
to
if
like an extent. Like, I mean, I'm not like
veganism is more in alignment with your
you're
own
super
morals.
like one way, but you're like super one way on veganism, and I'm like, hey, you called me a vegan, and I'm on that like same line, above like the 50 percentile or whatever you want to do the meter
Yeah.
of.
So,
Like,
but
and I think people should just be transitioning throughout time towards, everybody should be like leaning towards that way, and I think that's fine. I think what you're saying, it's like no, you're like oh yeah, like life's pleasures, um, like we always have to have in the back of our mind like suffering. I mean, that's just not really what I want to think about all the time.
you don't have to think about it all the time.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I
You
mean,
can
you think
change your
about you think about it a lot more
do you
than I think about it, like eating and stuff. And
all I hear when someone says something like that is like you think about others a lot more than I do. Like that's
You think about animal suffering more than I do.
and human suffering and the environment, probably, and I didn't used to, but I do
Yeah, I
now.
mean
And
that's a big burden to carry.
I don't think so. I think if we all collectively stopped making excuses for why we should continue to do bad things that hurt everyone and hurt the environment and hurt animals, then I think it would be a lot easier.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a big burden. Like there's certainly phases of veganism, like
yeah,
since I've
I
been
think,
vegan, where it's like, oh man,
yeah,
today is frustrating, right? But think about it in the same context of like anybody that was again fighting any moral issue along the way, fighting for slavery, fighting women's rights or anything like that. You could say, wow, that's a big burden, you should just give up. Like, no, we should keep pushing forward for what is going to be the best situation for everybody involved. And the best situation for everybody involved is for us to be living a vegan lifestyle and eating plant-based. It's the best for humans, it's the best for the environment, and it's the best for animals. So why should we push in any other direction? Why should we make up excuses for any other thing? Why should we look for other solutions when we already have the one that is like the best
I
solution
mean,
moving forward? Let's
I
do
don't
it.
know if it really is the best for everything.
It is. Like, you'd have to tell me why it's not, and maybe
I
we
think
can
I
pick that up in the next
told
conversation.
like scenarios of pleasures, but I appreciate it for tonight.
Well, we can't have pleasures if we're all dead, and if there's no environment to live on, there will be no pleasure to be had. So, and your pleasure,
Bummer.
I don't think should be placed above the pleasures of workers in the
We need
slaughterhouse
to.
industry. I don't think we should place your pleasures ahead of everybody else's. I think that some sacrifice for certain people's pleasure is better for the entire people, because I don't think that we should place one person's pleasure over another's to that extent. If that was the case, then the president could just go, hey, I think it's really important that I get the pleasure out of enslaving
Yeah,
Chris. And you know what, Chris? Just like the animals, if you were in a cage about to have your throat slit, I'd fight for you. Like, I'd fight for you, and I wouldn't be going, you know what? Well, can't we just like treat him a little nicer and then kill him? I'd go, you know what? No, let's just not kill him. So I think at the end of the day, it really is simple. I know that it's really like people like to complicate it a lot and get into a lot of like rabbit holes, but we just have the choice that 3 times a day for our food, we can choose to harm animals or not. And we might as well just choose not. 3 times a day, we can choose something that's way better for the environment or something that's way worse. We can choose to be entertained by, movies or something else that has much less of an impact, or we can choose to be entertained by a being's suffering. Like, it really is simple. You say you don't like the analogy of like, well, would you kick a carrot or kick a dog or whatever it is? But it really
yeah,
is that simple. If you would choose to kick the carrot instead of kick the dog, then you should choose to eat the carrot and not eat the dog, and not eat the cow, and not eat the pig, and not eat the chicken, and not eat the fish. You should eat the carrots, the kale, the beans, like all the plant foods that you can eat instead, and season them and cook them so that way you get all of the taste pleasure that you could possibly want for the 5 minutes that you eat it. So, Chris, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Let's pick it up for another call. I know we've hit the 2 hour mark. So I want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's time here and stuff. But thank you everybody for joining. Let's make sure that we are all kind to each other. I saw a lot of arguing in the comments.
yeah. I
Maybe
want to get caught up. That's gonna be my late night reading. I love it.
yeah, I'll go back
Yeah,
through and see
thank
if
you guys
anything
for
stands out.
listening. If you guys happen to be meat eaters, run on Instagram. The Tucson Wing Expert
Don't do that.
is
Go review some vegan wings instead, Chris.
yeah. I invited you to a vegan wing review.
Yeah, we'll do that and not
All right.
do the meat ones, not the dead body ones. So, yeah, ultimately, thanks everyone for joining. Chris, thanks for being here. We will make sure to have you back on the channel. We appreciate you being here. Everyone, if you haven't already and you're still around, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Please put comments if you have extra questions or points, or if you're someone that thinks you would also like to have this type of discussion or debate about something, or if you had a problem with anything that I said, feel free to send it to me. You can send it to me on Instagram. You can join the Discord channel. Lots of ways to pretty easily contact me, and I'd be happy to answer your questions and go through anything. I apologize that we bounced around quite a bit. I would have loved that to stay on a track, but there was a lot of tangents and everything. So I'll take some time to just thank people for being here. Julissus Hedgehog, thanks for being here. I don't know what you were typing, and you said that you're sorry for being a horrible typer, but it's okay. We forgive you. Austin, hey, what's up, buddy? Thanks for being here. I'm sorry that you threw up. I don't know what you were throwing up to. Easy breezy vegan. Thank you as always. Now I want poutine. I don't know how poutine got brought up, but man, I'm down. Let's get some poutine. 40-year-old vegan. When the hell are you going to be on this channel? Let's have you on. Let's get your points of view. I'd love to have you on this channel. I want to challenge you on your story too. If you're still here, I want to challenge you because um I think you've probably talked a lot about the same things over and over again, and I want to hear some different parts of it. So I'd like to dig in a little bit further. So let's get you on the channel. I think that was it as far as the people that are still here. Jim, if you're still here, thanks for joining. Jim McCormick. Sorry that I couldn't get to a lot of your comments during the stream. Obviously, we're in the heat of the debate, but I appreciate all of your comments. I appreciate you being here. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I appreciate it. We'll catch you next time. Until next time, stop thinking about what you can't do and start thinking about what you can do. Thanks.